like, if you want to do this, then you should do this horrible thing.
Do you agree?
Like,
Do you think we should be dating people with trauma? Do you think it's something we ought to do?
Do I think that it's like required? I don't understand what you mean. I think that it's fine to date people with trauma.
Yeah, I think it is fine too, but I think we should avoid it. I think we should avoid it. What my whole point was, I don't think people that have spent their entire life trying to be good people avoid creating an environment where people are experiencing trauma should feel that they need to settle for somebody with trauma. That was the whole spiel that I went on. If I am somebody who has conducted myself in a manner in which hasn't produced people with trauma because I've been careful and diligent about how I've conducted myself, why should I feel, and I don't think we should, that was my whole point, I don't think I should feel pressure to have to settle for somebody with trauma.
Right, but if the people that you're talking to are people who, like, if they are listening to you and they're, like, in their 20s, they think, like, well, I don't have any sense of self, that I don't mind just, like, sleeping with whoever and treating them like shit. Like, they also have trauma, like, and they are causing that trauma. So if they take your advice, they're, like, just taking fucking normal women and causing more trauma.
That's not my advice. That's the issue, is you saw what I said as advice. What I was saying was a descriptive reality, that if you do these things, it is an effective way to get short-term relationships and quick sexual experiences. That is what it is, right? And there is no incentive on earth that prevents us from doing that. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We have to do that independently. And a big part of this...
You think I'm weird if I wouldn't date someone who's religious? No, I think it's probably an okay, like, dimension of compatibility to worry about.
Talk about is holding yourself to a higher standard. My issue is that nobody talks about holding yourself to a higher standard, and that is what is necessary. It seems like what we tell people is that it isn't an effective way of doing it, or we avoid the subject in general. It is an effective way of doing it. I have to look people in the eye and go, I know that this is good at getting you what you want. If you're a young man that wants sex or short-term relationships, this is a really good way to do it. But the problem is, you ought to hold yourself to a higher standard because it pollutes the environment for everyone else, and including yourself. It does that. You should stand on your own two legs with your back straight and not do these things is a part of exactly what I said. But denying that it is an effective...
Okay, that is not a part of exactly what you said.
Yes, it was.
Like, I was listening to you the whole time. Like, you should go back and fucking listen to it.
Then why do you think there were so many people adding you in chat saying that that's not what I was saying?
Uh-oh.
Because you probably clarified your stance on this at a different time and I wasn't listening. But I'm telling you what I heard in your stream and I was listening to it. You're not saying, like, this is something you can do. Like, yes, it is possible you are going to have more sex. But, listen, what you need to do is not do that.
Okay. If you didn't hear me say that, then that's fine.
Ooh, the dismissive okay. I do that all the time. People hate it when I do it. I love doing it.
If the whole disagreement just came down to you not hearing me state
no,
that,
it's not that I didn't hear you. It's
or that I didn't say it. It doesn't. It's completely irrelevant.
What you're saying though is like the only reason.
Would you date someone fresh out of a relationship, aka 3 months or less? Yeah, those are literally the best people to date. Okay.
To do this is if you are a good person, which you have no incentive to be.
Correct. There is no incentive to be a good person in material reality. There is none. Outside of a sense of purpose, indeed. There is no good. There is no. Tell me what reason there is for like Jeff Bezos or any of these.
Why? Because high quality people are always dating. Okay? If there's some girl and you're like, damn, this is like a really cool chick, but like I'm gonna wait for her to like, you know, like process her breakup and all that shit, and I'm just gonna like chilling over time. She's gonna be dating one of her friends in 2 months. No, sorry. She's gonna be dating one of her close friends in like 4 weeks or 3 weeks. Because as soon as she's out of that relationship, there's like 4 guy platonic friends in her immediate circle that are instantaneously trying to hit her up. Instantaneously. Like generally, it's not always the case, but like 94% of the time, like really high quality people are like always in relationships. So like the only time you can get like super lucky and date one of these people is like right after they've like gotten out of a relationship.
Other people with a lot of money or influence to do good things. There is none outside of a sense of duty or purpose. There is no incentive to being a good person. That's how reality works.
I mean, even in the frame that you have, like I said, you're lowering your dating pool if you're saying that if you shouldn't date
I can't tell
women
if this is
with
sarcasm or
trauma
not.
over 30.
This is not sarcasm. I'm super serious. I might have even said this in the past when it comes to like the difficulties of like dating past 30. The reason why it's really difficult is because if you want to find like a really good woman to date who's single at 30, the only ones are going to be ones that are just out of relationships. Like if they've been single for like 5 or 6 or 7 years, or even for like a whole year, like that's just so exceptionally rare that there's not like some other really weird fucking shit going on with them. That's so incredibly rare.
Do you think... Go ahead. Sorry, you were talking about something else. Go ahead.
Yeah, you shouldn't date women with trauma over 30. Then you are creating those women and lowering your dating pool. Also, if
No.
you
I
want to date...
never was in the process of creating it. I stand by those. I'm not going to date a woman with trauma that causes her to do a bunch of fuck shit to me. Fuck that. There's plenty of women that are like upstanding people that are normal fucking people that aren't going to do shit like check my phone without my permission. Fuck that. I'm going to stand on my feet and I'm going to go, no, I'm just not going to deal with you. I'm not going to deal with trying to fix your trauma that you killed.
Really, a lot of women in the medical field are single at 30 from what I've seen. They all say they were busy focusing on their career in medical school. I don't believe it. Maybe, but I don't believe it.
Partially caused by your interacting with these people. Because there are easy ways to find decent people. People just don't do it. People like things that are more...
Okay, what happened to our poor friend Irrelevant here? It seems like... Did he get into a fight with a girlfriend recently or something? Or did she like check a phone and find out he was cheating or something? Or what the f is... what is going on here? He seems really invested in this phone argument. Like, it's really important about traumatized women not checking his phone. Like...
Spontaneous. People like for instance, the woman earlier in the story, there were actions that she made, I'll grant, not as with as much clarity or clairvoyance as she would have liked at the given time. Maybe she was young or whatever. But there are people, grown adults, who have avoided making mistakes that other people have made that have brought them to the problems that they are currently having. I don't believe that every single...
That was her example, little bro? Wait, have you guys been listening to the video? That might have been the example that she used now, but the reason why is because Irrelevant has brought up that phone argument like 15 times. He keeps saying like somebody that won't check your phone, somebody that won't check... Like, he's brought that argument up like 15 times. What are you talking about?
Person who's experienced trauma or is experienced or is actively like a piece of shit to another person was only that way without anything that they could do. I refuse that. So I'll just find somebody that doesn't go through my phone, that doesn't do these various different things that may be caused by trauma, and I'll just get in a relationship with them. Or just not get in a relationship at all.
Based.
I think it's really, like, obviously, yes, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But when you start off by saying, like, never date a woman with trauma, and then have to go back and clarify what you mean, it's pretty toxic.
Damn.
How is it toxic?
The Irrelevant is hinting at something true here. He just said it in a very edgy way. The real answer is don't date somebody who uses trauma as an excuse to treat you like shit. That's the real take.
Because people are going to hear, don't date women who have gone through trauma. They're not going to hear, don't date women who go through your phone. Because obviously that's good advice. You should not date people who go through your phone.
I said it explicitly in the context of that trauma manifesting inside of a negative pattern of behavior inside of a relationship. And I gave the example of the phone. I gave the example of suspecting you're constantly cheating, possibly cheating on you because they're so insecure and things like that. I gave those examples at that time.
You gave them later, but yeah, I'll accept that. I just think that it's really important to like push that like doing this is creating these women with trauma.
Yeah, but from the perspective of selfishness, which is what most people are operating with, who cares? Not your problem.
Damn.
And so we need to give people a reason to care. And the only way that we can really do that is by making them have a sense of self that's attached to being a good person. And
He
most
said,
young people don't
who the
have
f cares?
men or women don't have that.
Well, I'm a little delayed, but another reason for you don't have to just want to be a good person to do that. It creates more possible partners for you.
I already said that.
No, I don't think it does. Are you talking about long-term? Are you talking about long-term partners?
She already repeated it.
Are you talking about long-term partners, like when you're ready to settle down?
No, I mean it just is better for everyone overall.
Yeah, but
It
I get
is better for you if you don't do that shit.
no. Well, no, it depends on what you want. If you want short-term relationships, if you want fast sex, then no, it's fine. And your own contribution to that isn't going to poison the well for all women. It's not going to happen. If I disrespect all the women I ever interact with, there will still be billions of other women that are perfectly normal and well-adjusted. I could just go find one of them after I'm done. My own personal contribution can result in me having quick access to. What do you mean? You think I'm going to? You think I'm gonna? Oh, I understand.
Where are all these perfectly well-adjusted women? Find me one.
Hey, listen, base. The point is that I myself cannot pollute the entire pool, and that's the way people operate. I'm gonna have fun in my 20s, I'm gonna have fun in my early years or whatever, because the consequences are not large enough to cause me, and even myself, issues long term, so I'm going to do these things. And then, when I wanna settle down, I'll just go find somebody who might be a little bit harder to find, but are still gonna be perfectly findable. Because
Well, she's not gonna like. Do you, the way that you just said that was like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to not have any consequences, and then I'm gonna mature when I'm 30. Like,
Yep.
there's no reason to want to do that.
why not? A lot of people want to have sex and quick relationships in their early 20s. They want to have fun. And part of that fun, for unfortunately a lot of dudes, because of the way that we encourage men to be promiscuous, is to have a lot of sex in short-term
Promiscuous.
relationships.
Right.
Men gain a lot of clout by doing this, so a lot of men will be like, yeah, sure, I want to do this, and then when I'm 27, 28, maybe 24, 25, I want a long-term relationship, and they can start being nice to women. We need to provide them a reason to not do that.
Yeah. But the problem is that they are hurting themselves by doing that.
Very
They're making it-
marginally. Very marginally.
I mean, you can, like, dating older men in their 30s, you can tell guys who have, like, been shitheads and are still shitheads and are just trying to, like,
And then the
Settle
argument wouldn't be to continuously be a shithead. What
Nah.
I'm saying is, if you're a nice guy,
Can I get a
looking at the
nah?
way
I
that
don't
this
know why.
environment
I just
works,
wanna hear
if
it.
you're a nice dude, an upstanding person, and you want to have sex in short-term relationships, but then later you realize you do want to have a long-term relationship, what incentive do you have to not be an asshole for the first 24 years of your life to try and get those short-term relationships, and then later, oh, well, I came to an epiphany.
because you
but kind of
don't
already
know
knew.
how to have a healthy relationship.
Well, no. What I'm saying is you're a nice guy. You know how to have a healthy relationship. The problem
How?
is it's...
How, you haven't
What
had
do
any
mean?
training or experience
Do you
for
want me
it?
to describe how to have a healthy relationship?
How would you
No,
know?
I'm saying, how would you know how?
Yeah.
Do you not think that there's any guy who's 18 who knows how to have a healthy relationship?
No? At 18?
Yes,
no.
but it's usually
no.
by trial and error that people
Yeah.
learn how to
You have to learn
healthy
it, but you don't know that at
relationships.
18 because you haven't had the trial and error.
And if what you're doing is having a bunch of shitty relationships and
Okay,
treating
so
women
then,
like
you're,
shit,
so,
you're
then
gonna
you're,
have-
so then you're making it worse. What you're saying to me is that these nice guys need to have the trial and error to be able to learn how to treat women well inside of a relationship. But if these nice guys can't easily get inside of a relationship, then
You think I could build, like,
what is their solution? Because by
another
the
16
arguments
of
we have
these?
made already,
And it would
they
fit?
could be mean, get into several relationships, figure out how to treat women by initiating at a point of being mean or rude or abusive, get in a bunch of relationships, figure out how to treat women, and then later in life,
how are they learning how to treat women if they're just like being dicks to them?
because
like,
what we just described earlier, that being mean to women will enable you to be able to have sex with women more consistently, i.e. get you more interactions with women for longer periods of time, and also potentially get you short-term relationships, something that you may not have otherwise had. There's plenty of nice guys that are incapable of getting inside of relationships in their early lives because of X, Y, and Z reason. And what you just stated, which is that apparently one of the only ways to learn how to treat women, which I disagree, is to be in a relationship.
Not how to treat women, but how to have a relationship.
Yeah, I don't agree that the only way that you have to learn how to be a good partner in a relationship is by having a relationship.
That's probably true,
think it is
actually.
a
It's only by
probably the
having a
most
relationship.
effective way. But what I'm saying
It's
is
the
that
only way.
You are talking to a man who is struggling to get a single relationship in every 7 years. And you're saying to him, just get in relationships to learn how to be a better partner. Well, great. Like, that's very helpful to him.
I didn't say that they should just get into relationships to learn how to be a better partner, but I know that if they're doing like the treat women like shit thing, then they're making themselves a worse partner
No.
for their future relationships.
That's not necessarily true. Because there's multiple different factors. One, you can present yourself as somebody who you know women might be more attracted to, like what described previously. You could put on, you could learn game. You can get tattoos. You can look more rough, whatever.
What?
Women inside.
Dude, our relevance on some actual incel shit. Wait, what? Get tattoos and look rough? Nah, bruv. What are we doing here?
Your area find to be disproportionately attractive. Primarily depends on where you live, right? You can fall into these categories, and then you can be nice to these people, or you can be mean to these people to get in quick, fast relationships, so that way you can get relationship experience.
You have like such a skewed view of what women want.
What do you think
It's
think
so
women want?
weird.
What do you think
Bad
women want?
boys.
I think that you think that women care a lot more about income than they do. I think that you
Really?
think that women.
How much do you, what makes you think, like, what line do you draw where I am versus what women really want?
Raleigh Samuel's true.
I think that, like, it's not just income, it's like a status thing, right? So, like, I guess looks would bump you up in status as well. Like, women don't think about that when they're going into relationships.
What, looks?
No, of course they think a little bit about looks, and of course they think a little bit about income, but it's not, like, to the level that you are putting it at.
This is probably true depending on what he said and depending on where she said. Like, women do care about, like, what you look like and your income, of course. But I feel like red pill people think that it's, like, the only thing that matters. Like, a woman, like, basically checks your pocketbooks and your height, and she's like, okay, we're good to go, let's go. Because she's securing resources. Because the woman's job is to secure resources.
What do you think? So make a statement that you think I would disagree with, but is actually true. Because you're saying that my expectations don't meet reality. I don't have anything to go off of. How?
Let me see, something that you would disagree with. Women will date people who are less attractive than them and make less than them as long as they make them laugh or make them happy or make them comfortable.
That is a necessarily true statement by the virtue of happy. Do you want to try a different one?
Ooh.
That is an ontologically true statement.
Oh, he hit her with the O
Please don't
word.
use that word.
Okay, it is a necessarily true statement.
Okay.
But you said women will date men who make them happy. Obviously. Okay, so do you mean that just a funny guy? Is that what you mean?
I'm a guy who makes them comfortable.
Come.
Go with comfortable. not
That's,
just funny.
then why would any nice guy ever be single?
Did you mean he means tautological? Yes, he means tautological. Tautology, it is what it is because it is what it is. Based.
I don't know, like, because they haven't found somebody that.
No.
Oh
give me
no!
a legitimate reason.
Water!
Why
Oh
would any
no!
Give me a reason.
What do you
Or
mean, meshes
nor.
with- Because a nice guy is capable of making a woman feel comfortable. By your standards, any person that is capable of making a woman
Oh,
feel
you mean like a
comfortable.
nice guy, like in quotes, like nice guy.
A genuinely decent. I think there are millions of men that are perfectly fine, normal human beings that are not in relationships. Why are they not in relationships?
Usually, I don't know, I know a bunch of guys like that who I wouldn't date because there's usually something like a bit off-putting about their personality. It's not like a looks thing or like a...
Right, I agree. I'm not primarily about looks. What I'm primarily about is social interaction. I think 90% of insults aren't insults because of the way they look. I think it's the way that they talk and the way that they move. I think that is the primary reason why. It's not that they don't have riz. They have negative riz. They come off as weird or creepy or a little bit whatever, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that a woman wouldn't be comfortable around that guy.
No, they would be if it wasn't for the quick jumps that we make about character assessment. This is the problem with dating, is we make very quick assumptions about people based on the way that they walk.
This is why I don't talk to Dusty in voice. It would just be him repeating everything I say in a strum and Aussie voice. I tried to talk to August one time on Discord, and his voice was just so crazy. I dragged Abba and Melina into the call, and I was like, oh my god, if I get like really angsty and I start acting like House, it's almost like we've got his original team here. Let's go, guys. And then he never talked to me again.
The way that they talk or whatever, and we make very fast assessments. I believe there are millions of men and women that are overlooked because of small, minute details that really, if you get to know them or if you start a relationship with them, wouldn't really matter that much. Let's talk about weight for women. There's millions of women that I believe exist right now that if dudes just kind of started dating them, even became friends with them over a period of time, would realize they're perfectly good people and want to date them if they gave them a chance, gave them a couple dates or whatever to get to know them. That isn't the case, though. People make snap judgments all the time. If I kind of talk like this, there's going to be millions of women that do not even give me a chance, that where if I were to just talk like this, they would give me a chance. And it's just that simple, but my personality is exactly the same. It's all about presentation.
It wouldn't be. Like, doing something like that indicates some sort of insecurity.
True! It does. It does.
No, it indicates a lack of social practice, a lack of
yeah, insecurity.
Because you can believe that it is.
Oh shit! Wait, what's
I
going
am
on
one of
here?
those people. I don't know how to talk to women, and I can tell you, I'm a very confident man. Right? I'm a very confident man, but I don't know how to talk to women.
Oh,
It's
yes.
I've really ever gotten used to. And so part of the reason why I talk about this shit is I want to be able to show people that there's people that come in all shapes and sizes that are completely clueless on how to interact with women. Right? I believe I'm a decently attractive guy. I believe I'm a 6. I believe that I know for a fact that I'm a good partner to be in a relationship with based on my past relationships, how I've handled conflict, how I've handled breakup stuff, how I've handled rough patches, how I've handled a lot of these things. I know that I'm at least on par with men my age, probably considerably better. Right? Based on the stories that I hear women talk about, women complain about.
That's such a weird way of thinking about yourself in this ranked dating market sort of way. It's so weird. Like
Why wouldn't I compare myself to the other men that are available around me?
Because that's not how we're thinking about it when we're looking for men to date.
You kind of are probably a little
Literally
bit.
is.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm
Wait,
sure that you read the woman brain.
No, I just don't believe women are different creatures. I don't believe they're lizards. I believe that a woman is going to look at the men that are available to her and see what kind of men that she is capable of attracting, and then she will work within that sphere of what she thinks she is worth. I think that is how that works.
Do you think that all men have when we're looking at men, that there is an actual ranking that all women will, or most women, will put these men in this order?
Not consciously, no.
But I'm saying, is there an actual order there?
I believe this is how humans. So I believe this is how humans look at other humans. We view, for instance, with overweight people, we will subconsciously view these people, unfortunately, as lazy, unhealthy, undeserving of X, Y, and Z. This is how humans interact with other humans. Unfortunately, a lot of white people will look at black people as uneducated, inarticulate,
legions,
maybe
loud,
incapable of doing specific things. We rank other people all the time. When we walk around and we do things. That's how humans work. I'm just stating that women also do it just like men when it comes to dating. All right? And hold up, just an example of this is if I talk like this or whatever, you don't really know me. You don't know what my personality is. I could have a speech impediment. I could have speech issues. I could have trauma. right? That could cause me to speak in a specific way that would still make me perfectly worthy of a person to be in a relationship with. You don't know, you're just making a snap judgment based on the way that I talk.
Ooh.
You
Well,
understand?
of course, I wouldn't date you because you have trauma, but.
Of course.
Ooh.
But what I'm trying to ask
The
you
counter
is,
burn.
let's say that you're a 6, you say, and then you get a guy who's you see as a 7, and then you see as an 8, and you see as a 5 and a 4, whatever. Do you think that women,
Why
if
the
you get
fuck aren't these
100
connected?
women,
Hello?
they're going to put them in that order after, if these are guys that they fucking know, they're going to put them in that order.
It completely depends on the women. I'm not going to say what I view as attractive in men is what all women will always view as attractive in men. I think I have a pretty decent hit score. Do you believe that Henry Cavill is more attractive than me? Yes. Will most women put Henry Cavill over me when it comes to attractiveness? Yes. This isn't rocket science. This is not rocket science.
But that's, like you said, that attractiveness is not something that you're focused on.
Yeah.
And that's not something that,
Correct.
It obviously matters, but it's not like the only thing that women look for in dating. And in fact, I would say it's pretty low on the totem pole.
I disagree with that. I think I think you can look at how attractive men treat women and can and do treat women, and you can know pretty quickly that there is a special spot in people's heart for attractive people. It's just how it works. Attractive people get treated so unanimously better than other groups of people.
That's
Even
probably
the people
true.
who are not even like physically.
There's a lot of conflating of stuff going on here. Like, pretty people do get treated better than non-pretty people. That's almost for sure true. That's not quite the same statement as saying somebody be willing to like have a serious relationship or date a pretty person over a non-pretty person. That's not necessarily the same. There's going to be quite a bit of crossover for sure, but it's not necessarily the same thing.
Sexually attracted to those people. Men treat attractive men better, who are not, when they're not gay even. It happens all the time. It is a pretty ubiquitous thing.
Yeah, treating somebody better is one thing, but wanting to be in a relationship with them is another.
Oh, there you
What
go.
are you talking? The reason why they treat them better is because they believe that they're a better person or that they're worthy of more shit. So therefore, it would also correlate to relationships.
Well,
Do you not believe that more attractive people can more reliably get in relationships and can make more mistakes, like on a first date, than somebody who is less attractive?
Do I think that
I think attractive people, it's like booby streamers, I think. Like, attractive people can get their foot in the door a lot easier, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee success, but they have more chances probably.
more attractive people can... You mean like short-term relationships or
No,
long-term
even long-term
relationships?
relationships. All
No,
relationships.
I don't think so.
You don't think more
Sorry.
attractive people can get in relationships more reliably than less attractive people?
I don't think that they have a greater chance of having a successful long-term relationship. No.
Whoa. I never said successful long-term relationship. That's where the blue pill comes in. Success in a long-term relationship
shit.
comes down to
Should I have
personality.
stuck this
That's what
train?
it comes down to, both genders. It comes down to personality. What I said was,
Oh, no, he
can
should go
more
this way, right?
reliably get into a
And then go up
relationship,
here.
can initiate, can begin a
And then go over
relationship.
here. And go over here.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so then.
It's not an I guess. It's an unbelievable. Like this is what. No.
Uh-oh.
I wanna
He's
have,
going in.
This is exactly what I was referring to.
He's
when I
going
was
in.
Talking about the groups of people that might be on the. I don't know where you align politically, but the groups of people that might be on the left that that feel like when viewers watch their content, they aren't telling the truth. The answer is yes, and it's not even
Oh no,
debatable.
I don't
It's not
think
even
it's
a
just like an
closely
obvious yes because.
Another thing, I don't know if she's going to stumble this argument, but another thing that might happen too is pretty people, because they can get their foot in the door so much easier, have more experience talking to people, and they actually learn to navigate those conversations better just because they have that first intro so much more. So it might be the case that a pretty person is just a better conversationalist or better at people skills than a non-pretty person, but it's not necessarily because they're pretty, but because they're pretty, they're able to practice it more. Potentially, maybe.
Because there's the same amount of like 5 women as there are 5 men. Oh, but I forgot. You believe that like
Yeah, they can
a
train their
5
charisma
woman will
easier.
need like a 7 or an 8 guy, right?
No. Again, I don't know why you keep projecting these things on.
I saw you talking
At
about.
least as far as streamers go, there are literally no fat female streamers. Oh, that's not true. Casey Tron still streams, doesn't she?
that like the other day.
With that, a 5 woman needs a 7 man?
No, but that women will date up.
Yes.
Women like.
Yes, women do
and-
want to date primarily for social status or money, and that is statistically backed up.
What do you mean statistically back?
Okay, there is data showing
Data.
that women will
The
refuse
data.
to date if they do not find partners that are of greater social status or economic status as them, disproportionately compared to men.
True. Uh-oh. How's she going to deal with the
Men
data
are more
argument?
willing to date women at or below their level than women are willing to date men who are at or below their level. Economically.
Okay. So that's a factor that is more important to women than it is to men.
Correct.
So that's why it's weighed more heavily.
Yeah, it matters more to women than it does men.
But
so
that doesn't mean that women like want to date 8 and men are okay, 5 men are okay dating 5 women. Like that's not what that
That's
means.
never been my. Why are you bringing looks into a conversation about economics there? I'm not trying to correlate those two.
Economics in at the last second. What do you mean?
No, you said specifically about my position on hypergamy, whether women want to date up. And I said in reference to economics, yes. But I never said that women will uniquely get. What I said was maybe this was the issue.
But this
Women
is all
are
in
uniquely
reference to me
capable.
saying there's as many 5 women as there are 5 men.
No, it wasn't. You brought up, you said that my point was that men wanted to date, or women wanted to date men who are higher than them. And I was clarifying that it wasn't in reference to looks. Well, of course, everyone wants to date somebody who is as attractive, as successful, whatever, in many different arenas as possible, right? What I'm saying is that it was primarily what I've seen in reference to social status and money, that women will date up.
Okay.
Got him.
So going back to there's as many 5 women as there are 5 men, that's why I'm saying that it's not necessarily true that like if somebody is more attractive, they're going to have more chances at a relationship. It's that these people that what you're saying are 5s are like 5s for a reason. It's not just like based on an attractiveness scale. It's like if a woman ranks a man as a 5, it's not just money or the way that he looks. Like it's something with him in his personality.
Okay,
I think-
Jesus, yeah.
Well,
okay.
I also want to say when you mentioned Steve Jobs, you're also forgetting the amount of like graduates that worked in developing Apple OS within like the actual Mac OS systems and all the various products they made. Like Steve Jobs wasn't the only one that made the iPhone. It was a bunch of talented engineers from like various institutes that made that product come to a reality. Like one dropout wasn't the only one that made it, you know?
If you want to drag
I think
anybody
when
here,
you
you can
say-
add them too. I don't, because these guys wanted to open it, so I'm telling Sneak out. So it
I
doesn't
think
feel
when
like
you
I'm
say
talking.
like followers and leaders, like the thing about followers and leaders is like it ultimately becomes like a symbiotic relationship, you know, between like two people. Like obviously, like Destiny said, not everybody can lead because when you look at a fire going on, there's one person that jumps in and like 9 of them just stay back. That's not really a detriment to them. It's just like there's going to be people that like know how to lead and there's people that are really, really good followers, right? Like if you're going to run any business, the problem with online businesses and crypto shit is that people made one good fucking investment and now they think they know everything about running a fucking business and like all of that bullshit. A real business isn't all online based. A real business is you develop something, you expand it, you make sure you get a lot of revenue, you bring a lot of people
You guys
on
are
board
really
with it.
assuming that I'm a
And then
big
you-
crypto guy. I've never even been like, I haven't even made much money from crypto. I'm not that person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, okay, what is your example of like a good leave the matrix like business? Like, what is like one thing that would just fucking, you know, how would you like sell somebody to leave the matrix? Like, I'm not a big person of college either. I'm also a
I think
dropout
my
myself.
editor Musa is a perfect example of that. He makes $1,000 an hour doing consultation calls. The dude like failed high school, and he'll do one that not only just from editing for me, but he'll do 1,000 an hour consultation calls because he studied the TikTok algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, and all these like older companies that want to get into the content creation space. They want to learn from him.
Hold on,
So
wait. Which guy?
Musa, my editor. They talked about him in that video about the creativity kit.
I don't know if I'm believing. $1,000 an hour consultation calls.
$1,000 an hour. Kid's
That's been
19.
insane. That's been insane. I mean,
Yeah,
Okay.
well, just now he had I think it was a music label. Now they ran up an account to 100K on TikTok, and they're very glad that they learned from him. So he learned a way to hustle out of that. Even though he failed high school, he failed the traditional path, which Destiny wants you to do. And we're trying to spread that
Wait,
knowledge.
he's making
$1,000
consulting, and then he's still working for you?
Yeah.
You must pay a ton, bro.
Man, why you
I'm just saying.
I thought you had a Lamborghini and shit.
No, I'm just saying. If I made $1,000 an hour doing my own thing, why would I work for somebody else? That's the question you should be
He goes
asking.
through the message that I'm spreading. He agrees with me. He watched my videos before I started streaming. He likes.
Yeah,
he
but I
likes
mean,
working.
wouldn't that be a debt? How much do you pay him? Is it enough to make up for the shortfall of time that he's missing out? Like here, let me give you an example. Let's say that I work 5 hours a day, I make $5,000 a day, right? But let's say, oh, I love Destiny so much. Let me just make like f***ing less working for him 2 hours a day because I f with his message. That's not really intelligent now, is it? I'm actually killing my income. You understand what I'm saying?
Tell him to quit his job. Like if he likes doing it, what do you want me to say? He doesn't get these calls.
Well, that's
all
what
the
I'm saying.
time.
Like it
He
doesn't
does- he
like
does, he does,
logically
seven
no,
or eight
but
of these
like
calls a week.
what I'm saying is like logically it doesn't make any sense when you say it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like there's 24 hours in a day. You're trying to optimize your earning.
Yeah, he doesn't get these calls like all back to back to back. He gets like 10 calls a month.
Okay.
That's a perfect example. It's an extra 10K a month he makes doing consultation calls.
Okay, so instead of saying like it's per hour, just say it's like $10,000 a month.
Well, that's what.
Which
the
is
call
not bad. It's just like
it's
it's not an hour.
$1,000 for 1 hour on a call. How is that confusing?
Yeah, but see how it's like see how it like comes across a little bit like disingenuous. Like we're sitting over here and you're kind of like saying, oh, it's $1,000 an hour, right? So now we're sitting over here wondering, oh shit, like
thinking in
Destiny,
terms
do
of
you agree with
matrix jobs,
me?
bro.
No,
He
but
has
like
multiple
Destiny, do you
hustles.
agree with me that like when he says $1,000 an hour, we're kind of sitting here wondering, oh shit, he must do this like every weekday. He might be making
I
more
knew what he
than
meant.
10,
No, I knew what he meant. I just wanted to clarify because I'll say shit like that.
Yeah.
Like I can get paid like 5,000 to 20,000 technically per like activation on like a video game thing, but I'm not making like 5,000 an hour every single time I'm streaming. But I'll tell a girl that I'm streaming. Yeah, you know, I make $5,000 an hour. Blah, blah,
It's
blah,
all
but, like,
different,
not,
but I mean, it's.
sure, yeah, but no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I mean that the guy's learning. It's good. It's like 10K a month. That's solid. I mean, it's he's working for you.
That's
It's
a side
fine.
hustle. His main thing is he takes 25% of the creativity kit, and that's the main source of his income. It's been running out. It's doing well.
Well, do you agree that the jobs that we have, like, okay, because I don't consider YouTube to be the job, but like, let's say you're a social media influencer, right? That's a pretty rare job to have, right? Like Destiny mentioned earlier, there's like 10 million like streamers on Twitch. Very few of them have like an actual like earning potentials, right? And even a few of them have like the multi-millionaire levels.
There you go. Like my editor is a perfect example of somebody who doesn't have to be on camera, who doesn't have to be this entertaining online personality, and still can run up a bag doing it from the side. Now he takes editing jobs and he just outsources it to other people because he built up a reputation being my editor. So people hire him to be his editor, and now because he knows the algorithm, he just gives it to other kids. They do all the work. He takes the money. He takes like 80%, and it's just he's running up a bag as a 19-year-old who failed high school, who didn't want to take the traditional path, who didn't want to be a bot, who wanted to make his own money, and it's working. 19 years old. He's not like, it's not, oh, 1 in a million, this is hard. There's a lot of ways to make money online. That's what you learn in the creativity kit.
I mean, I guess, but I'm just saying, like, the safer example is always still like getting a good STEM degree.
That's my point. That's my point. A lot people who watch my stream are tired of taking the safe route. They're tired of.
They haven't even tried the safe route. They haven't even tried the safe route.
Oh yeah, everybody.
Well,
in here,
what about-
There's a reason why, dude. Nobody working for Facebook, Apple, Amazon. None of these guys are like, man, I'm gonna quit my dev job and go try to like do Amazon shit, or I'm gonna go try to like sell shit online. Like nobody's doing that. There's a reason why none of those guys are doing that. Like,
what about people that go to a university? Well, what about people that go to a good university, Sneeko, and they like develop a good education, and they also build connections through there? It kind of sounds like this person came to you to like another form of like education, kind of like a college, if you will, and like fucking developed a connection and worked
see how
through
dumb
that.
that is. Like Destiny earlier has been saying that my shit's a scam when it's $50 a month. He went to Saxophone.
whoa, I didn't
school.
say your shit. Hold on, whoa. I did not say
Oh
your
my
shit was a
God,
scam.
bro.
I didn't say it was a scam.
Okay,
Chill. Don't
okay.
put words in my mouth.
All
I
right.
didn't say it was a scam.
He didn't say it was a scam, but he's talking down in the creativity kit, saying that it's like not a scam. I don't want to like trigger you, but you're saying to network and go to school, which is essentially what college is for, networking. $50,000 a year to network. Why not pay
Well, it's also to
50,000?
learn too, right? Like you're going 4
barely.
years to learn a
because,
STEM degree.
we also agreed that all the information in college is available online now. You could just download the books. You don't need to go listen to this old guy talking in front of a classroom and go to Zoom classes. Just go watch a YouTube video. All the information's online.
Yeah, but okay, but the thing is,
hold on. The benefit of school is the networking. That's what Destiny said. Like, oh, I could play saxophone across the world, meet successful other jazz players, and I can network and learn a band. Or you can find an online community full of similar like-minded people and work with them. My shit's $50 a month. School's $50K a year. Fuck that. Why?
So wait a minute.
The idea that this shit is a scam is so stupid. But they don't. Then like people like Destiny be like, go to school.
Could
and
people just
take up a bunch
download
of
your
loans.
information and like cut you out of the equation and succeed then? Or do they need you?
I do 3 calls a week. This is why networking is the most important part.
So the old guy you go to learn at university, okay, and I'll give you a great example. Like when you're in like computer sciences or computer engineering, the old guy is not just some old guy. The old guy has like decades of experience. They understand the frameworks, the theory. They're the ones that are going to be they're the ones that are going to teach you how to apply it in a practical sense going forward into like a big company. So roughly you and that old guy that's teaching people in the Zoom class or in real life, they're one and the same. Like, if you're going to talk shit on the old guy, you have to cut yourself out of the equation. People can just download your shit and go on with it, right?
Sure. Yeah. They can like they can download the book. How much does school cost? What's the average cost of a college tuition?
What do you think? Is it like 20K a year or what?
It's different in America to Canada.
For an in-state school?
How much is the creativity kit?
I don't know, but nobody's getting a job because they said they have the creativity
$50
kit.
a month. No, I just told you somebody just got a job.
Okay, I'm sorry. A
Full-time
measurable amount of people aren't getting jobs because they have the creativity kit. Maybe 1 or 2 people did. My bad.
Have you asked them?
I haven't pulled everybody in the creativity
I've given
kit.
a lot of people opportunities. People have run up 100K TikTok accounts clipping on my stuff, and they show it to a label, they show it to a company. Look what I can do when they get jobs. Or people like Musa can now do $1,000 for 1 hour of a call because he's shown that he knows the algorithm. Doing clipping my shit up. There you go. Giving people jobs. But then well, this is just... You guys so adamantly want to defend the Matrix and defend paying fucking 100K a year for this.
Okay, but you know you
Damn,
can't
college gets
leave
more
the Matrix,
inflated every
right?
time you bring up the cause.
I don't understand this. Hold on. Just a side tangent. What is the Matrix? Do you know you can never actually leave the Matrix, right? We're all part of the Matrix.
Yeah, but you can limit how much you're actually in it.
Okay, but you're still underneath the Matrix. So you said earlier, like, nobody has a boss they respond to. Dude, everyone's got a boss.
That's
I
true.
got a boss,
That's
Destiny's
true.
got a boss, you got a boss.
All right.
We're all, no matter what, we're all
would you
Matrix.
rather get a boss? I was just at the Apple store today, and this lady was just yelling at the Apple store employees, and they all hated it. They called her a bitch as soon as she walked away. Whose boss? Like, I don't have to see my boss. I don't need to look at her. I can make jokes about her. I can tell her to like, and that's it. That's
Okay,
it.
so when it comes to the Matrix, right, like, I think the point is when you go to college or you go to university and you go to like structured education, you're picking a safe spot, right? You're picking a safe way to have a safer life. But the thing is about like breaking the Matrix, you can't break the Matrix. You can only like succeed well within it, right? And not everyone has the means to do that, right? You can watch a million videos on YouTube about how to run a business, right? Perfect example. I went to this fucking Airbnb in Los Angeles. I opened up this fucking YouTube page, and you know what the YouTube like first results were? How to fucking make money, how to make money fast, how to make money quick. Like the guy bought one property, rents it out, calls it a day. You want to make fucking actual money, you need to have capital to do it, all right? Which not many people have. You can't even go to get a business loan these days because credit can be so far down and shit. Not everyone has those opportunities. So they go to university, they go to college to at least get something stable going. Because like Destiny said, time is finite, okay? If you spend your early 20s trying to chase the bag and trying to make the millions of dollars, you'll find out very quickly it's not easy to do that. But if you have 5 years of shit to show for it, like a college education and at least some career, then you can probably do something, you know, safer in your 30s and your 40s down the road, you know? Like, it's called being stable and secure. And some people are cool with that. Most people I would say are fine with stable and secure shit.
Yeah, I think
And
too many
very
people.
few
My
people-
idea is that too many people are okay with just a life that's fine. That's just fine. We're sick of that, so they want to go and become better. I think Myron is a good example of somebody who has the main type of capital and then invested into real estate so that he doesn't have to ever work again. You get a source of income with the skill online and then reinvest it into other places. It doesn't have to be crypto, like which makes Destiny so mad. There's so many ways to become independent. And I think more people should know that instead of taking the safe route. You guys are saying take the safe, easy route that they've laid out in front of you that is meant to keep you a wage slave for the rest of your life. And we can agree to disagree. If you want your chat to do that, then fine. I hated doing
everything they have to capture at least one city in the east, which is Bakhmut, and they still fail. In the meantime, Ukrainians dramatically increased their pressure against Svatove Kreminna, and reportedly Russians even started retreating from one of these settlements. And as a result of this, and just overall extremely low morale of the Russian soldiers, reportedly entire divisions started surrendering, and millions of people, mostly Russian soldiers, they just simply want to leave. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian, most likely still Canadian dude, and I hope you're having extremely wonderful winter holidays. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And our first video comes to us from the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, where we can see the local residents celebrating the Christmas underground in the subway stations. The dates for Christmas celebration are different for Catholic and Orthodox Christianity. The first ones celebrate on December 25th, while Orthodox Christians celebrated on January 7th, but due to recent separation of Ukrainian Church, they allowed, let's say so, to celebrate the Catholic Christmas as well. Our next picture comes to us from Luhansk region, and as you can see right here, the local, let's call them authorities, gave out new license plates for the cars, which include the Luhansk region as a part of Russia. I'm not sure if these license plates have been issued in very small quantities, but I'm almost certain that in the near future there will be pretty big collectibles. Next we go to already familiar Engels Air Base, which is located in Saratov region, Russia. And as you can see from this video, reportedly 2 attacks have been recorded against this airfield. According to the Russian side, they were able to intercept the Ukrainian drone, but because of the falling debris, it eliminated, or how they called it inflicted the damage to 3 Russian soldiers incompatible with life. And reportedly, as a result of the second attack, a local small headquarters has been seriously damaged. This is not the very first attack against Engels airfield, and as a result of this, Russians relocated approximately half of their planes to another airfield, located in another part of Russia, which is... give me some time, I'm just scrolling here. It's not here yet, it's a little bit more... okay, here. It relocated to pretty much the eastern part of Russia, to the airfield with pretty interesting name, Ukrainka. As you can see, this new air base is located pretty far from the borders with Ukraine, but I'm pretty positive that there's still no panic. But nevertheless, unfortunately, Ukrainian side still reports that they do have the intelligence data that Russia prepares another mass attack against Ukraine in the near future. Specifically, what has been mentioned is that Russians lifted Il-76 A-50U reconnaissance plane, and several ships carrying caliber missiles have been spotted in Mediterranean, Black and Azov Sea. And as you can see from this picture, the total number of missiles estimated to be in these areas can be up to 100. And in case these attacks do happen, which hopefully they won't, Russians obviously expect the retribution by Ukrainians. And that is why, as you can see from this video, which came to us from the capital of Russia, Moscow, we can see that several air defense systems have been deployed. We even have this video from the Moscow city center, which shows us 4 military helicopters Mi-8. And then in this picture, which came to us from Voronezh region, we can see the instruction how to behave during the attack by an enemy, which local residents received with their utility bills. But just like mentioned previously, don't worry, there is still most certainly no panic in Russia. Just a couple more words about this potentially upcoming another mass attack by Russians against Ukraine, and then I'll give you a pretty interesting update from the south. So, like mentioned previously, most likely the majority of attacks will be carried out using caliber missiles. But then on this picture we can see the basic characteristics of a new Iranian drone, Shahid 131, which Russia received recently and most likely is planning to use in Ukraine. But Ukrainian air defense system constantly improves every single day as well. And for example, right here we can also see the basic characteristics of a Patriot system, which the US recently pledged to Ukraine. This system has been proven to be extremely effective, and most likely it will be used to protect the sky above Kiev. And then on this map we can see the air defense coverage that Ukraine will receive as soon as they can get all the requested weapons, such as for example 8 NASAMS, 6 Hawk, 4 Iris-T, 1 Patriot and 1 SAMP. As a result of this, every single time the attacks by Russians are getting less effective, which most likely means in the near future we might see a drastic change in the course of war. And if you don't want to miss these events as soon as they start happening, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. You can also follow me on Instagram, because this week I'll try to post some interesting stories. Alright, and now let's get back to the south. And first of all, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russian elite forces called Spetsnaz are doing the reconnaissance on the right side of Dnipro River. Most likely they are just collecting the intelligence data on Ukraine's defenses, but to be honest I do not see any single sign of an upcoming offensive of Russians against this part of Kherson region. And at the same time, several days ago there was another mass shelling of Kherson city itself. Unfortunately, mostly residential areas have been affected, including one hospital, and reportedly Russians were even using the incendiary projectiles. And due to still ongoing, at least partial demonetization of my YouTube channel, I don't think I can show these videos in my today's episode. For this reason, I uploaded some of these photos and videos to my Discord, and the rest will be available on my Patreon. And if you want to see all this footage and at the same time support my channel, the links will be down below. And then as we go back to the south, in this video we can see that Ukrainian flag has been raised in Mizhvodne settlement, which is located on Crimean Peninsula. Reportedly, this has been the work of Ukrainian partisans, and in case this is true, this basically confirms that Ukrainian forces are able to cross the sea and land on Crimean Peninsula. We then also have several other reports which claim that the large military convoys of Russians have been spotted traveling from Mariupol in the direction to Melitopol. And at the same time, Russians already started building the defense lines in the Zaporozhye region, specifically around Tokmak. And among these defense structures are the embankments, trenches and the dragon teeth, which previously proven to be extremely ineffective. And the reason for this, if you remember from my previous episodes, it is because Russians do expect that Ukrainians will open another front line in the Zaporozhye region, which will go towards Tokmak, with its ultimate goal, the liberation of Melitopol. Alright, and before I talk about the alleged retreat of Russians from Svatove-Kreminne region, allow me to give you a very quick update from the east. And first of all, according to the same report by the Institute for the Study of War, the main concentration of Russians was next to Bakhmut and Avdiivka. But reportedly, the private military company Wagner, which is primarily located in Bakhmut area, is suffering incredibly big losses. Which basically means that the pace of the Russian offensive in this area decreased significantly, and most likely they will even attempt to stall the combat activities. And speaking about Bakhmut, according to Ukrainian forces, the city itself has been fully liberated from Russian occupiers, and Russians suffered as many as hundreds eliminations per single day. But so far, this information has not been yet confirmed by the General Staff of Ukraine. And right now, let's briefly take a look at this map, which shows us the changes in the territorial control over the last week. And as you can see right here, Russians were slowly advancing to the north of Staromikhailivka, while Ukrainians were pushing Russians away from Mariinka. Next we go to Bakhmut area and its neighboring settlements. And first of all, Russians were able to advance a little bit to the west of Kurdyumivka, and later they were able to capture a big chunk of land to the west of Andriivka. But the very next day, Ukrainians took back some of its territory, and Russians started pushing to the north next to Klishchinivka. And as we go to Bakhmut itself, every single day there were very slow advancements, both by Russians and Ukrainians, surrounding this city. And then, as we go to Svatove-Kreminna area, we can see that Ukrainians were liberating small parts of this land to the west of this highway. And since we started talking about this area, let's really briefly talk about the alleged retreat of Russians from Svatove. And first of all, according to the head of Luhansk region, Sergei Haidai, Russian occupiers, or quote-unquote authorities, they started fleeing from Svatove in the direction of Luhansk. And as you might already know it, historically, this was the very first sign of an upcoming total withdrawal. At the same time, according to yet unconfirmed reports, Ukrainians have been pressuring Russians in Kreminna, inflicting maximum massive damages. At the same time, Ukrainians reportedly started advancing closer to the city, and pretty much the same starts to happen next to Svatove. Which basically means as soon as Ukraine can establish the control over this highway, the resupply of Russian forces to the south of this area, specifically in Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, will be extremely limited. Because of such failures on the most promising front lines for Russians, as well as just a generally low morale of the Russian soldiers, a lot of them started sabotaging and quitting, leaving the army. And according to the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, at least 25% of Russian soldiers have attempted in one way or another to flee from the front lines. We even have this article which tells us that Putin himself acknowledges that he knows that Russian soldiers are surrendering their positions and run away. But what he says is that this does not happen in mass, and this is just not a problem. We can always just we can always just recruit more. Putin also mentioned that Russia does not have these so-called military camps or military prisons, and all of this is just a fake news. And then he added that this is normal for a regular person to get scared and run away, but most of these people return to the front lines voluntarily. But then once again, according to the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, according to their own data, the entire divisions of Russians, sometimes they do surrender as well. And according to their statistics, approximately 1.2 million people, which are mostly Russians and Russian soldiers, have contacted the Ukrainian website, which is called I Want to Live. One of the features of this website is that it gives you the instructions how to properly surrender to the Ukrainian army. And as of recently, there have been as many as hundreds of applications every single day. And one of the main reasons for them to do this, it is because, as they explain it, they have absolutely no idea what are they doing in Ukraine and what is the reason to fight in this meaningless war. Right now this war generally slowed down, most likely because of an upcoming winter holidays. But to be honest, I'm pretty positive that we might see some rapid developments in the beginning of next year. And if you don't want to miss any of these updates as soon as they start happening, just please once again subscribe to my channel. It only takes one click. And if you want to support my work, please consider becoming my channel member, use a PayPal link or become my Patreon, where you'll receive the early access to the additional content. My November videos are still mostly demonetized, so this financial support means a lot. All the useful links can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.
The China Seas, ringed by the countries of Southeast Asia. These are some of the most fiercely contested waters on Earth. Beneath the waves, the shattered remains of epic battles.
It's as if you took hundreds of ships and put them through a blender.
Mysterious treasures and technological wonders, all hidden from view until now. Imagine if we could empty the oceans letting the water drain away to reveal the secrets of the seafloor. Now we can. Using the latest underwater scanning technology, piercing the deep oceans and turning accurate data into 3D images. How did America defeat the biggest battleship of World War II?
It was huge, it was powerful, it was fast. For the Americans facing it, it was a brute of a battleship.
What's the truth behind the strange disappearance of the mightiest invasion force of ancient times?
One of the biggest disasters in the history of maritime warfare.
And how do you protect the World Wide Web from the perils of nature? To compete or collaborate, trade or invade. These twin human instincts have defined the China Seas for centuries. As these turbulent waters begin to drain away, 140 miles south of Japan, they reveal a top-secret battleship. The biggest ever put to sea. What were its secrets? And why couldn't they save the lives of 3,000 men? October 1944. Two giant warships sailed towards the biggest naval battle in history. The mighty Yamato and its twin, Musashi.
The size of the Yamato is breathtaking. The Yamato and its sister ship Musashi were by far the biggest battleships ever built.
Almost 900 feet long and 127 feet wide, these super battleships dwarf their opponents. Their hulls are protected by an incredible 16 inches of armor plate. And every part of them bristles with weapons. On the bow, two giant turrets. Then over 100 smaller guns. Before a third turret. They are the biggest floating fortresses ever put to sea. As the flagship of the Imperial Japanese Navy, Yamato carries the seal of the Emperor himself, a golden chrysanthemum.
Yamato comes from the term Yamato Daimeshai, which is the national spirit of Japan. It was literally the embodiment of Japan itself.
Yamato isn't just big, it's also top secret.
The Japanese took enormous measures to keep the Yamato secret from foreign navies, even to the extent of putting up a building so that Western naval attaches could not see the ship under construction.
Even Yamato's commanding officers are not told its true size. Its secrets, whatever they may be, are to be protected at all cost.
And they were successful in this because for the entire war, the Americans had no idea the ship's true size or the size of the guns that she carried.
Japan's secret battleships are put to the test in one of the biggest naval battles of World War II. 3 years after Japan bombs Pearl Harbor, the Pacific War is about to reach its peak. Advancing towards Japan, U.S. and Australian forces launch an invasion of the Philippines. Yamato and Musashi lead the Japanese fleet as it tries to stop the Allies in their tracks. The Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944 is the biggest naval fight in history. An epic slugfest of 300 ships.
Leyte Gulf was the last chance the Japanese fleet had to stop the American advance.
Yamato draws first.
Well, look at society, and you tell me.
Ask me.
Wait, so let's ask the single ladies. What would you prefer?
I would prefer someone who's monogamous. I left a situation where I got the Bentley, I had all that, I had the kids, I had that. That was great. I want a companion. I want real love. And to me, what monogamy means to me is someone who's committed to themselves. That's like, the answer is within you. And to be honest, I feel like, again, like the sex has been lost in translation and what it means. I don't care man or female. It's been lost as it's so sacred. So for me, I have kind of taken those blinders off where I'm like, okay, he has to be here. I'm okay with dating the trainer in Austin, Texas. That's just where I'm at. Like, I don't need a certain thing because I know what I'm wanting. Most guys in that percentage are not gonna give me. So I would rather have a monogamous man than someone who can do whatever.
So you think the personal trainer is gonna be monogamous? They're like known for cheating, no?
Well, I mean, here's my thing. Like, I get it. Like, I don't generalize people because I'm one of the most misunderstood people online as well. And I feel like there's a lot more to me, and I don't like to just put everyone in a box. I'd like to get to know people. So no, I'm not gonna just say, oh, well, of course he's gonna cheat on me. Like, no.
Okay. Would you take a guy that makes $35,000 a year and had a dad bod?
Had a dad bod?
Yeah, dad bod.
I feel like for me, I would want someone who.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
I pour into myself, and I'm accountable for my shit. I'm aware of what I got going on. I'm not gonna have a mom bod. I'm in the gym. I had a baby a year and a half ago. I'm in the gym 4 to 5 times a week. So I would want someone who can match at least the work ethic. Now, when it comes to money, I know for me, I want to be able to. I do not want to rely on a man. I have literally done that before. It didn't pan out in my favor, okay? Because what happens is you get the rug ripped from under you, and then now you fucking get out, bitch. Give me the motherfucking keys. It isn't that. So for me, the lifestyle I want, I am responsible for. So I don't look for a man to make X amount of dollars because anything that I want, I'm gonna get myself.
Well, because in my head, I feel like a guy's just as likely to cheat if he's in the top 20% of like looks. Just as likely as money. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't.
Let me ask a quick question, just so I can clarify something, because I understand your points. You're saying you want a partner, a life partner. Are you sure? And I'm not accusing. I'm genuinely asking. Are you sure you're not confusing the amount of time the man spends with you with his monogamy? Because they're different things. Because what happens a lot of the time, if a man's out here chasing chicks, he's barely home. But imagine you had a man who was home 7 nights a week. He was always home. I'm talking about like an hour, like during his work lunch, you don't even notice. Then would you even give a shit about monogamy if you had all of his time effectively? Would you really care?
I still would care because I feel like it's still just an hour a day and it's not really quality time. I feel I really have been in so many different situations. Again, the trainer in Austin to the NBA player baby daddy. Like I have seen all of that stuff. And it's just my personal experience and perspective to where I want someone that sees the value in the Grand Canyon. I want somebody who.
I understand. Okay, like, so that's a good point, and so I'll just ask the first question. I'm gonna ask the second question. The realization you've come to is an interesting one. It is something that happens, especially to females as they mature. Don't you think it's strange, or why do you think that 0 women on Earth choose those kind of men who they perhaps have slightly lower status, but are more likely to be loyal to them and be monogamous, etc. In the modern world, because like I said, the world's changed. Why do you think 0 women choose them when they're at the peak of their choices? So when a woman is 19 and she can go anywhere she wants, every man wants her, she can go on any yacht in Miami, she can get flown out to Dubai, where she has all the choices in the world, why is she completely uninterested in those kind of men? And then when she gets to a certain age of maturity and there's a whole new generation of girls who have all the choices, then they sit there and go, you know what? I deserve monogamy and da-da, and they all of a sudden want to grow up and mature. Why does no woman decide that when she actually is at her most valuable?
I feel like like I said, I don't like to speak for all women, I just speak for myself, but I know for me that I was looking for a man for a lifestyle, something that I was not able to do individually by myself. So that's why it's like, well, yeah, I want to be able to do this, do that. I want to go for the football player that was just on GQ. And in reality now I realize, well, okay, there's a lot that comes with that. I can make my own money. I don't necessarily need that type of guy for the happiness that I'm looking for. Again, seeing value in the Grand Canyon is a lot different than like, okay, here's money for this, here's allowance for that.
And that's
here's
the
an hour
same
of my
thing
time.
as you asking why a man that is 20, 21, 23 is not a top G like a 30, 40-year-old
Well,
man.
no, the point-
your age actually dictates your sort of maturity to a large extent.
Well, I'm arguing the point. The point I'm trying to make is that what I actually think happens, especially in the modern world, because the modern world's all fucked up, nothing's the way it's supposed to be. The traditional life path of a female is she's 17, she's 18, she's 19, and her value is massively inflated. And I don't blame her. Of course it's massively inflated. Imagine being 19 years old, have achieved exactly fucking zero in your life, knowing nothing. You put makeup on, and sports stars, billionaires, actors, the most important famous people on the planet, the richest men on the planet are begging for your attention. The ego you're going to develop, let's all be honest, right? The ego you're going to develop is going to be monu-fucking-mental. I'm special, I'm so gorgeous, all this bullshit, right? And then what happens as they grow older, as new generations come along, because the truth is most women are at their peak attraction, let's say in their early 20s. As they grow older, what women become is far more fearful of competition. This is why you'll see a woman who's a bit older go, oh, you know, I really want monogamy. What she's scared of is her dude getting a 21-year-old. That's what she's fucking scared of. She may not know it, she may not say it, but basically that's what the truth is, because she knows a 21-year-old is going to be more desirable, higher status, more fertile. That's what she's scared of.
Cheating is bad when you're 30 or 27.
So no, but it's not about that. I'm telling you the shift in the female mentality, because when a female is 20, she doesn't give a fuck about any of this. She doesn't want to find a nice man. Now she's trying to, like you're saying, chasing a lifestyle, chasing Mr. Promiscuous, chasing Mr. Famous. Doesn't give a shit until she starts getting scared. Oh shit. Oh, my age begins with 3 now. And then they change, the mentality changes. It's a fear element. That's the reality. And it's a biological fear element. I'll give you an example of it. You know what's amazing about humans? We are still very primal. When men like these two and me, when we walk through the mall, people just move. It's like you can sense when the big animals turn up, right? It's something amazing about humans. If you have a very attractive 45-year-old woman, she's gorgeous, but a gorgeous 19-year-old walks in, look at that 45-year-old woman's face. Furious. She fucking hates her. She just doesn't like her for no reason. Yeah. Because women understand, unfortunately, but your age is a massive indicator in your value. In an inverse way to men, men are more valuable as we get older. Every woman knows that. Every woman will sit here and go, yeah, well, I know a man who's older than me. Of course. But if I say it the other way around, I'm misogynistic. It's just the reality of the world. So then we have to go to the other point. The point is this. When you were at your peak value, you had zero interest in monogamy. But then you find a man who's 35 at his peak value. He's finally struggled and worked, because when he was 19, no girl spoke to him. When he was 23, he was broke. When he was 24, he had no life experience. When he was 25, he couldn't fuck. When he was 26, whatever. He finally gets to the point where he's now at his peak value. Him at 35 is you when you were 19. And then you're sitting there saying to him, no, you should be monogamous. It's like, well, you fucking weren't. You did whatever you wanted in your peak. Now I'm finally got there. And I had to work for my shit. God gave you. God and L'Oreal gave you. I had to fucking struggle. I had to go through hell to get on this yacht. You got on the yacht with an Instagram DM. I had to buy it. And now you're telling me I need to fucking settle down and behave and grow up? Fuck you.
Because
it's bullshit.
You're assuming that the journey is a man that starts with nothing to something, because there's a lot of men that have
exactly the journey of every man on earth. We are born without value.
So there's specificity in that.
Can I just
because that's not how it should be for everybody. And that's not how it is for everybody, and not for every woman either. As well, may I just say?
Can I ask Brittany something, please? You know, like, then you've learned in the past. Mm-hmm. And now you want to find someone to settle down. With hindsight now, would you have reversed it and like started young, looking for someone to settle down with, looking for those values that now you know? I'm talking that with hindsight.
Okay, well, I actually, from 18 to 22, I was in a relationship. I've always actually been a lover girl, despite what I put out online for,
I've never
views.
seen you online.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, that's even better. I have always wanted one person, and I feel like I was so delusional in thinking that, oh, I'm like you said, like I have value, I'm beautiful, I'm this, I'm at my peak. Like, why wouldn't you want to be with me? So, going into these relationships, or just like just people. Mm-hmm. My goal was always to get commitment. Like, I'm giving you my time. I'm pouring into you because I want commitment. And the reality is I'd never really understood my value. So I was going through guys, giving up sex, doing this, and it didn't make sense. So I believe in, like, I stand on everything I do. Like, I don't do apology tours. It is what it is. And I think that's where I feel like when they talk about women being delusional and all these other things, it is true. Because what you have to understand is that there are repercussions to your decisions, which is fine. So then you're talking about, okay, well, I want this type of guy, I want this, that, and that. You're talking about maybe monogamy. That's 3 to 5% of animals are monogamous. I think that's what it is, right? So your window is really, really small for what you're looking for. And even to go on to the point you said where you were talking about it's like a subconscious fear, I think it's like, for me, I feel like if it was more of a fear, I would have just stayed in my situation. Like, it wouldn't have made sense. Like, I mean, that was my first kid. I thought I waited and did it, right? I left because I believe that there's something else on my heart when it comes to love, and I'm just gonna have to trust that. And if that means being alone, having a dog, I have to take that chance because the Bentley, the ring, the house, and still getting, again, deceived, right? Disrespected, because deceit is disrespect, right? So I cannot settle for that. I can't suck a dick and shut up. And that is where a lot of people don't like my views and what I represent, because it is something new. I don't know how it's gonna fucking end. I don't know what's gonna happen.
What would you tell your 17, if you had to like, what would you tell your 17-year-old self, knowing what you know now? Looking back and you had to meet yourself at 17, what would you tell yourself? Like, lock it down and wait for the right man, don't have sex. What would you tell your 17-year-old self?
That the answers aren't outside of you, because I feel like I'd always look for men to answer all of my questions that I've ever had. I thought when I had a man, it would complete me, and I feel like too, especially with like my dad not being in my life, you look for somebody to guide me. Like, so that's where for me, I put too much value in someone else having the answers for me. So that's why I'm really big on accountability. So I would just tell myself, like, to be patient, to take your time, because I was always quick, oh, let's try to get in a relationship. Like, we weren't even compatible. There's a lot of just not compatible factors. So I feel like for me it would be to slow down and to really get to know people, instead of just blindly banking on potential that most likely will never be tapped into, or selling myself short because there's a fear of, well, I don't know, this could be the best that I could get. I might as well just shut up and suck a dick.
And that's what I meant about women nowadays, because exactly what you'd be telling your 17-year-old self is what happened back in the day. So when I'm repeating these things, I'm going, oh, you're old-fashioned, but it seems like women do what they like, and then they hit a certain age and say, oh, well, I've got to settle. But it's not settling, you're just getting whatever you can.
You know,
or whatever you deserve.
You know what?
Because if you think back now, you'd be telling people now, rather than say that auntie's old-fashioned or auntie don't know what she's talking about, look what she'd be telling her 17-year-old self, which ain't nothing that I ain't already said.
Yeah,
because
that's fine.
really and truly,
You know what,
really and truly, let me finish. Because what I've always said, and you can check, I'm an older version of you. So where you've been, I've already been on a comeback. So that's why I asked you, what would you tell your 17-year-old self? Because me telling you is, I'm telling my 30-year-old self. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So it's not that I'm old-fashioned, it's just that women hit a certain age and then realize, oh my God, it wasn't that old-fashioned. You know, it works, because it does. But there's no point in waiting until you're a certain age to start thinking about it. You know, even if you're like, you hold your own accountability, so it's like if you meet somebody and they were like 17, 18, and you saw them acting a certain way, they ask you for advice, you wouldn't say do as I do, you say, listen, this is what happened to me, and this is what I thought, and what I recommend you do is blah, blah, blah. Am I right or am I wrong? If
no,
they ask you for your advice.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Like, I totally agree with that. I think that no matter what you decide to do, you have to accept whatever repercussions come behind that. So any advice that I give to anybody is do what you want, but just know there are repercussions, good, bad, or indifferent, that are going to come behind it. So, I mean, and I think that's just where I'm at. I don't even think it's like an age thing. I think it's like, in reality, I have a son, and you really start asking yourself questions. And again, I hate that it took having a child to really look into my life and call myself out on my bullshit.
So if you got pregnant earlier, if you got pregnant at 18, 19, would it?
I was always on birth control. Okay. I was on birth control for a decade. I got off birth control because the person I was with wanted to have a baby. Okay. So again, I thought I did it right. Clearly not, because I wasn't married, but it still didn't work out because it just wasn't my guy. So that's where I just think, like, even if I still would have taken it slow, there just were a lot of people that just were genuinely not my person, and that's okay.
I would just speaking of marriage, I wanted to know, do you think we're in a... As many of you know, I was just banned on TikTok, and we are demonetized on a daily basis on this platform. If you want to help, please consider sending a super thanks below. Every donation helps, and it helps make what we do possible. What up, guys? Welcome to the Just Pearly Things YouTube channel, and welcome, Auntie. I just wanted to clap. Oh, yay! Welcome to the channel, Auntie. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. That way you're going to be notified of my daily videos, like the video on your way in. Today, we are going to be reacting to my London hate group. Did you know I have a hate group?
Yeah, I've got one as well.
Yeah, so there are some girls that have been on the show, and they kind of embarrass themselves. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, you've seen them do this, right?
I've seen them, and I've heard you stop the woman. I've heard you stop one of them and say, you know, you're just keep on giving us this information. We haven't asked you for anything. You're the one who keeps talking. And she still didn't stop talking.
Yeah, so tell them what happened this week, Auntie.
This week, I couldn't believe it. I got told I was rude, that I was horrible.
Success to be able to operate in relationships or be willing to submit to whoever the man is because you've seen it growing up, or does it not have an effect?
I think that's a really great question. I know a lot of people who grew up in dual parent households and they saw their mother getting cheated on and staying. And I know like someone recently, they were married for like 25 years or so, or 23 years, and she left basically when the kids were old enough to just like, none of them were in high school anymore. And I remember when I was talking to her, she felt like she was setting her kids up for success because we're all under the same roof. They have a better chance of whatever, right? And it still was damaging because you are witnessing your mother tolerate disrespect for security.
How did the kids know?
How the kids know what?
That she was being cheated on.
It was something that this particular situation, I know one instance was like one of their family friends.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was really close to home stuff. And there was another scenario where...
It was one of the family friends they were cheating on, or was that told them?
No, it was that they were cheating with one of their family friends. So like someone we go over to her house all the time, but my dad is sleeping with her.
Oh, so they would see the parent cheat?
I'm not exactly. I don't think it was they physically saw it, but it was something that the mom would share. That they would hear arguments too, like if they weren't, even if they weren't involved in the actual argument, they would overhear. Which obviously, you know, exposing your kids to that stuff is one thing. But the other instance was, the dad was going out to the club with like the son, and he had a girl with him. So it's like that direct, like, I don't respect your mom in this way. I can do what I want to do, and your mom's still going to stay. So that's where I feel like it really depends on what's going on in that household, because seeing your mom be basically disrespected for comfort, it's like it sends the wrong message about love.
I agree. Like blatant I can't believe he brought his son to a club and shit like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, like the girl with him.
But I just think sometimes, you know, we never talk about like the women's part to play in this. And like one in 4 marriages are sexless. One in 4. And so I just think if you're going to starve a man and he's begging you to sleep with him and someone comes on a platter, like, that's why I say we never talk about why the men cheat. And a lot of people will take this out of context, like I believe in cheating, but like there are times where the woman is not sleeping with the man and then he cheats, but he's not naturally inclined to. And that's a conversation we don't really have. I'm not saying it's okay, but it's almost like, what did you expect?
But at the same time too, like, again, like, let's just, like I said, make it with me and you. Like, if you're my girlfriend and you don't want to sleep with me, my first go-to isn't to go try to sleep with someone else because I'm not getting it from you. I would want to explore the emotional depths of whatever you're feeling. What am I not doing? Why do you not want to be close to me? I want to be intimate with you.
But you're thinking like a woman. And that's how a woman, right. But like men, it's just, come on, you know how guys are. I'm sure you especially, like being as beautiful as you are, like most guys, if you put yourself on a platter in front of them, would be down.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's
not saying much, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like men have.
If you're giving him sex, he'll still cheat because there's options.
I would say most men that have women on them on a silver platter will cheat. Yeah, like I would
exactly.
say
So
most,
there's nothing
but
a
not
woman
all
can
men.
do.
Most men work a normal 9 to 5. They go to work, they come home. There's maybe one or couple girls in the office, whatever. He might cheat there, but most men, girls aren't really checking for. So if you date an average guy, unless you're starving him of sex, it's a lot of work for men to go out and get sex. That's why I say, what part did you have to play in him cheating? Like, okay, if you were with an elite athlete, right? They're just gonna cheat. That's just I see the normal. I saw D3 basketball players. I can't imagine.
NAIA.
I saw NAIA. I can't look at NBA. That's like I can't. But okay, but like your average 9 to 5 Joe, it's a bunch of work for him to go out and get a girl. So it's like, what part did you have to play? A lot of women are always nagging on their husbands. They gained a bunch of weight after they had a kid. Brittany's showing us firsthand, you don't have to do that. and it's like, then they stop sleeping with him, and the men are like, wait. I thought I got a 120-pound wife that was going to sleep with me all the time. Now she got the ring where I'm locked into a contract for life, and you could take my kids with me and my money and put me on child support, all this stuff. And now you're going to gain a bunch of weight and not sleep with me? Like, what did you expect to happen?
You're not holding up your...
Yeah, and so men, like, that's another reason men don't want to get married, because they're like, oh, I even had a guy tell me this. He's like, I don't want to get married. I don't want her to get fat.
But you know why? This is why a lot of the time as well, I may just say one thing. A lot of the time, the reason why some men get a little bit messed up comes down to insecurities. And let me land and I'll explain to you why. A lot of the time, the women that let themselves go in a relationship or in a marriage is also down to the fact that men, now that they own the woman, they do not want the woman to be approached. They don't want the woman to be desired by other men. It comes down to the whole territorial thing, which then means that you are now going to punish or going to complain, or you're going to put the woman in a position where she feels like whatever she looks like is a problem, so she'll let go of it and she won't even work for it. That's also another thing, another side of things. Women don't just let go of themselves for no reason. They start to let go of them.
This piece of metal is $4.35 right now on AliExpress, and we are going to trust it to bend our $800 Intel i9 12900KS. This is the highly requested for review Thermalright LGA 1700 contact frame, or as Thermalright calls it, it is the CPU bending correction frame protector fixing buckle. Good enough. We're gonna trust it on our 12900KS. So this competes directly with the $35 Thermal Grizzly contact frame, which we looked at recently in a review. And given the price difference, we're expecting at least something to be different. But for $4.50, almost, the Thermalright frame is in fierce competition with what Thermal Grizzly started. Before that, this video is brought to you by Squarespace. We use Squarespace for our own GN store and juggle complex multi-piece orders all the time with it. Squarespace makes it fast for us to roll out new products with detailed pages full of galleries, videos, and descriptors. It's also useful for your own resume sites, for photographer or project portfolios, or for starting your new small business idea. There's never been a better time to try and start your new business than right now, and we can vouch that Squarespace makes it easy. Visit squarespace.com/gamersnexus to get 10% off your first purchase with Squarespace. The Thermal Grizzly frame reduced thermals by about 7 degrees Celsius for basically no work. It's a little bit. You have to swap out the Intel ILM, which is this thing, for a Thermal Grizzly contact frame. But other than that little bit of work, it's pretty simple. And for 7 degrees, that's a big drop, especially if you're looking at something like a small form factor solution where you need every degree Celsius you can get out of the CPU because your cooling options are limited. So now we're back to see how the Thermalright competing option does. We have one more we're gonna look at that we bought from Amazon. It was in between these two price points, but we're going to the extreme low today. Now, to be fair, Thermalright's contact frame sells for closer to $10 to $20 depending on what you're looking at online for US-based retailers like Amazon. But if you're willing to wait maybe 3 months to infinity, depending on if it ever shows up, then AliExpress gives you the cheapest option possible. These frames ship in pretty simple packaging, so it comes in one of these, and then there's gray, which you see here. There's a black option here. They all look the same. in every way except for the color. There's red that you see here. It's a really nice red, actually. And then there's a blue option, which we have mounted to a motherboard right now. And you see that here. In addition to the colorways that they offer, it comes with a thermal paste syringe that is honestly mostly empty. It looks like it has a lot more paste than it really does, because the plunger's almost all the way down. You get maybe a gram or a little more down here, and it comes with a Torx driver that you're going to need to tighten the screws. Now, the Thermalright frame colors are nice, and they do look good when installed on the board, but ultimately you're not buying this for the looks, you're buying it for function, and you won't even be able to see it once it's under a cooler anyway, unfortunately. But you can rest assured knowing that your build looks cooler than the next person's in ways that nobody can see or qualify. So they'll just have to take your word for it. The big topic between these two competitors is obviously price, because the Thermal Grizzly option here is, again, at $35, even if you look at a more generous price point of $20 on the Thermalright one, $15 savings is pretty significant difference, like 50%, when you're talking at the price point that these are at. So there has to be a difference. And the one that at least Thermal Grizzly would market the most heavily would be quality. Thermal Grizzly's biggest claim with its contact frame is that the tolerances are extremely tight. They claim no greater than a 40 micron difference in the thickness of this frame from unit to unit, and that affects the mounting pressure and how it all works. Meanwhile, Thermalright, well, we tested it, and we'll get back to that. Now, for Thermal Grizzly on these, the way they talk about installing it is by doing a witness mark on a screw, which we actually show in footage with Mike from our team, and then aligning it with one of the tick marks on the Thermal Grizzly contact frame, which allows you to get a pretty good estimation for torque without having a torque driver. And that level of accuracy is gone with the Thermalright solution, which instead takes a more YOLO approach of tighten it until it stops. So Thermal Grizzly's cost, whether or not it actually matters, we'll get to in a moment, comes from a few places. For one, we found when testing that the Thermalright frame has a thickness variance of about 240 microns, or 0.24 millimeters, and that's from one frame to the next. We have about 6 of them here or so. Thermal Grizzly's variance from frame to frame, again, is about 40 microns maximally. In theory, this variance would affect how tightly the user needs to install the screws, which will affect things like memory frequency stability at the high end, and potentially thermal performance, or at least the pressure distribution you'll get across the surface. Now, the frequency is the one variable we're not testing today because there's an unbelievable amount of variables there. It's extremely difficult to test, and it's hard to quantify ultimately because it's memory overclocking. That gets very complicated for other reasons. So we're not able to isolate our own memory overclocking skill to the point where we could reasonably identify a difference between the frames. So we are going to be looking at the pressure, which we can do very well, and the thermal, which we can also do very well. So another reason for Thermal Grizzly's cost, when we were trying to figure it out, why can Thermalright sell between $4 and say 10 to 20, and Thermal Grizzly is stuck at 35? It can't. That's too much to just only be margin. And so when we were researching it, we learned from Thermal Grizzly that the company is manufacturing its contact frame in Berlin, Germany, and it also noted to us that none of its manufacturing for the contact frame is outsourced at all. It's all done in-house. All the design and engineering was done in-house, and that's all there is to it. Maybe the box is made by someone else. So that's where the cost is. The cost is coming from where it's made, where it's a much higher labor wage. Speaking with Der Bauer from Thermal Grizzly, he noted to us that his goal is to do more manufacturing in Germany to create good paying jobs for the staff that works for Thermal Grizzly. That cost, of course, to make it in Germany is going to be reflected in the price to consumers. So there's your two choices. One's significantly cheaper, and one has definitely tighter tolerances in our own testing. That may or may not matter, depending on, well, it will matter a little bit. It's just with Thermalright, you can adjust for it. You have to spend a little bit more time tweaking the screws if it doesn't work exactly as you hope when you install it the first time. But if you take every step that Mike from our team gives you, you'll be fine. The differences in manufacturing quality do shine through a little bit. We've noticed, for example, that there are some rougher edges on some of the Thermalright frames where you can feel some metal burrs along the edge of the aluminum. This doesn't affect the functionality, it will not affect the thermal, and it won't affect the pressure. So you could make the argument that it just doesn't matter. And if you're paying extra money for Thermal Grizzly, although those faults won't exist, at least on ours, it also isn't something that'll affect the performance. Now, the backstory behind why these frames exist is something that we explained pretty well in our first review that we'll link below. We're not going to go over it all again today, but we made some animations showing how this, the Intel ILM, or the independent loading mechanism, works, and how it applies pressure, and where it has weaknesses that both of these contact frames are able to competently solve, whether it's from the much cheaper or the more expensive brand. First up in our testing is pressure testing. We use a chemically reactive paper with a National Institute of Science and Technology traceable scanner, which was made affordable by our Patreon backers at patreon.com/gamersnexus, and by our store purchasers buying things like this limited edition cyber skeleton shirt that's made with water cooling tubes for the rib cage. It's got a pump cap with gold around it for the heart. By the way, we've learned on the team that hearts are further in than we thought, and we reflected that in the accuracy of this design. You can grab this on store.gamersnexus.net. It helps us fund things like buying test equipment like our NIST traceable pressure scanner. So we used this for the test, and we tested this against 5 total CPUs. We're only going to show 3 of them today because they all show the same data points. We did 5 CPUs with at least 2 test passes per CPU. Sometimes we went with 3 just because we saw something we didn't like. And then we did that with multiple contact frames. Now, critically, this is done with a single cooler that we know has a very good pressure distribution. It's the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2, and we're using the 420 version of it. The reason you just want to use one cooler is, one, to control how much testing is being completed. The first contact frame we did for the Thermal Grizzly one, just for Mike's time, not counting mine on test lead and engineering the test cases, Andrew's on editing and filming, or any of the QC time we put in, only for Mike's testing time, 40 hours. So that's why we do one cooler. And then additionally, the goal is to isolate the variable as the contact solution, whether that's an ILM or a contact frame, and not test coolers. Although we do swap the CPUs so that we make sure we're at least gauging for that. Starting with the 12700 pressure test, we'll go left to right as a refresher. The Intel ILM had gaps centrally and at the bottom of the IHS, shown in both test passes. This isn't the worst pressure distribution from cooler to cold plate, but we're still missing about 1/3 of the IHS. The Thermal Grizzly frame covered almost everything, including more of the center. It still had reduced pressure here, but to some extent, that's expected. There isn't any direct pressure application in the center, and it's the farthest point from the mount, from any of the screws. The Thermal Right frame is the new one. This still resolves the bottom center gap that the Intel ILM had, and it looks similar to the Thermal Grizzly frame, so a very strong start for the much cheaper Thermal Right option. The border coverage is more rounded than the Thermal Grizzly frame, and the center is overall lacking some of the pressure from the cooler. So we would say that these are a good improvement overall over the Intel frame, this one here, but not necessarily over the Thermal Grizzly frame. Versus Thermal Grizzly, it's basically the same between the two. Here's the 12900KS, starting at the left. The Intel ILM lacks coverage centrally and along the edge closest to the RAM, just like last time. The bottom half of the pressure map is completely lacking as well. This was resolved with Thermal Grizzly, which was able to get coverage centrally and along the bottom, though lost some pressure between the IHS and the cooler along the top edge. It was still a marked improvement, especially with the central coverage. The Thermal Right frame improves on both the Intel ILM and the Thermal Grizzly solution. Its coverage is overall even, with a gap forming consistently and only in the bottom left. So for $4, this is looking good so far. With the i9 12900 non-K, the Intel ILM showed the same gap centrally and along the bottom as before. The Thermal Grizzly frame improved in all aspects, especially pressure centrally, and adding Thermal Right to the mix, the coverage was mostly the same as Thermal Grizzly's. The center is improved. The RAM side edge now has coverage over the Intel ILM, just like with the Thermal Grizzly frame, and any remaining lacking areas of coverage are acceptable. Next up is thermal testing. So for this, it is extremely important to control all of the variables, especially the voltages and the frequency. A motherboard has more than just CPU vCore. It has things like VCCSA, VCCIO, if it's AMD, then you have VSOC, and all of these voltages, VDIM as well, need to be controlled and set at a fixed level and not automatically fluctuating. The board will auto-fluctuate voltages depending on how the BIOS is built and depending on what the CPU wants at any given time. So we fix these for our testing because without doing so, the thermal data is pointless. We also control things like the fan and the pump speed, and we control the local testing environment to be basically exactly 21 degrees Celsius plus or minus 1 degree, and then we do a delta T over ambient for the temperature that we present. All of these controls are extremely important to getting good test data, and we use a 12900 KS that we've manually tuned for all of this testing. Here's the chart. The blue bar shows the original Intel stock ILM. Red shows Thermal Grizzly, and orange shows Thermal Right. Our tolerance is about plus or minus 1 degree Celsius. The left labels show data for the average all-core CPU temperature under load, the average maximum temperature per interval, and that's over hundreds of rows, as always, and the core-to-core delta, or the hottest core to the coolest core. The Thermal Grizzly and Thermal Right frames both improve significantly over Intel stock ILM, dropping by about 7 to 8 degrees Celsius on average, or about 10 degrees on the averaged maximum core temperature for the Thermal Right frame. The core-to-core delta is mostly the same and largely within error, although there's technically data to support some improvement with the two contact frames. These frames clearly work, and there's data to support that they work, but what there isn't is data to clearly support that one is meaningfully different than the other outside of the Intel ILM changes or comparisons. And we did 5 test passes minimally with multiple remounts in there. So we have at least 2 passes for the first mount, then we do another mount, and this allows us to make sure that we're eliminating or normalizing for human error, or averaging over, as much as possible in the installation process, especially with Thermal Right, where it's not as mechanically dictated as Thermal Grizzly's mounting solution. So we're not seeing a big difference, and we can't really make a claim as to one being thermally superior to the other, at least between the ones that we've tested. But Thermal Right does have more variance frame to frame, so it's possible that you have to change how much you torque the screw to get the maximum result, depending on if yours is one that's a little bit thicker, a little bit thinner within the tolerances. Ultimately, the natural variation between the Thermal Grizzly frame and the Thermal Right frame makes these two look identical in thermal testing and in pressure testing. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to Mike, who's going to walk you through the installation process, because these things, there's a reason they don't come stock on Intel boards, and it's because it's very easy to screw it up during the installation and introduce instability even when you're running default settings and not overclocking. So Mike can take it away.
Thanks, Steve. We're going to be going over the installation, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the differences between this contact frame and the Thermal Grizzly frame that we reviewed previously, and sort of what my end user experience was when I was testing this frame. So if you haven't already seen the Thermal Grizzly review, you should go back and watch it. This installation segment is going to be a little bit more brief and not going to have quite as much detail as the Thermal Grizzly review did, so be sure to check that out. So I'm going to go ahead and place our frame down. Now the frame is marked with the same indications that the CPU has for the right corner, the little triangle that they put in the corners. But again, the holes are offset, so you can't orient the contact frame incorrectly. It just won't, the holes won't line up and you won't be able to install it. Now I'm going to place my 4 screws in their respective holes. And I'm going to start walking them backwards. And by backwards, I mean counterclockwise when looking down at the top of the screws. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me an audible click. And I'm continuing to move counterclockwise here so you guys can hear that click. But this is a way to prevent cross-threading, and we went over this in the Thermal Grizzly, but it's a very important technique to use, especially with these finer machine-threaded screws. And I'm going to give it about 90 degrees from when I hear that audible click. And I'm going to go catty corner or diagonally across the CPU here. And I'm going to do the same thing. So there's the click, it fell, the threads have fallen into place, and I'm going to give it about 90 degrees there. Move across here, do the same thing, 90 degrees. And our final screw, and 90 degrees. Now I'm going to go through all 4 corners and continue to slowly walk these in. And the reason I'm doing this in segments or in 90-degree increments is it's going to prevent the frame from becoming off-kilter or walking unevenly down towards the CPU, right? So I'm slowly lowering the CPU. Ideally, in a perfect world, we'd have 4 screws that we could turn simultaneously, so the frame would sink down on the CPU evenly. So now that we've got resistance on all 4 corners, we're going to start tightening down in smaller increments. And I'm gonna do that to try to avoid over-tightening again and walking the frame unevenly down on the CPU and creating uneven contact with the pins. Now, Thermalright, unfortunately, doesn't provide any torque specs or guidance on how to do this process. Their instructions are picture-based, and they basically show you where the screws go and then show you the frame fully installed. While testing this, went until I hit a hard wall of resistance, and then I did not actually tighten into that hard wall of resistance. So I guess we could break it down into sort of two different steps, right? During the initial installation, while we're walking it down, there shouldn't be any resistance, right? We walked our screws backwards, we got them to thread properly, and then we lowered the frame down onto the CPU. And then as soon as we hit that resistance, we slowly walk it down further until we hit a hard wall of resistance. So, and once we hit that hard wall, I didn't tighten it down any further. Because of the resistance of the pins pushing the CPU back up, it's creating tension on the frame and it's going to keep it in place. So that hard wall of resistance exists on this contact frame because the bottom of the frame is making physical contact with the top of the motherboard, which is of course different than the Thermal Grizzly solution, which doesn't actually go down and tighten all the way into the board. There's no washers or standoffs or anything that's actually touching the top of the PCB on the motherboard. I actually, in use, really liked this. It made for consistent mounting and certainly gave me a more measurable understanding of when the frame was evenly tightened down, as well as just being pretty darn secure. Because we worked through that second level of resistance, I knew I was, pushing the CPU down onto the pins and getting good contact. And I was kind of trusting Thermalright's machining and engineering that the CPU isn't getting pushed too far down or too far up. I didn't have any issues while testing this frame, getting it to boot or post. I caused no damage to boards, thank goodness. I'm sure Steve appreciates that. So overall, I was impressed. It of course looks pretty cool, but then again, who cares? It's not going to be visible under a cooler. So that wraps up the installation segment, and I'm going to throw it back to Steve.
So that's it then. Here's what we can say. The Thermalright frame, purely from a performance perspective in our testing, performs about the same, if not identically, to the Thermal Grizzly frame. So they've done well there. They've matched a far more expensive competitor in the market, where again, your price range is at least $15 between them, and at most, closer to $30 of difference, with the sort of asterisk that it may take quite a while to get to you. There are some machining issues where we can feel these harsher edges that catch on the skin on the Thermalright option, but all the ones that we felt on the frames we have are on the outside where it's not going to affect anything. It does mean that you can see it where some of the quality differences, but again, a lot of the quality or a lot of the differences in general might not be things that you notice. If you're doing extreme overclocking and you care about the memory frequency greatly, we would still suggest leaning towards the Thermal Grizzly frame instead, because it's been tuned specifically for that. And that's the one variable that is very difficult to test for, just because of you're introducing all of this overclocking difficulty. And it's something that we're not particularly adept at testing for, with maximum memory frequency for an overclock. So Thermal Grizzly's tolerance should help you there, and the more specific guidance on how to mount it and torque it properly. Thermalright is easier in that regard. It's also potentially easier to screw up, just depending on your own skill level mechanically and how good you are working with normal hardware, like tools. So there's a few ways to look at the conclusion. Purely on price and things like color options, Thermalright's doing extremely well. The blue and the red ones look really sharp. We love how they look on the motherboards. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see it once it's in your computer and you've got something over it. Now, maybe even if you get something, an acrylic block or something, you're ultimately, unless it's all acrylic, at which point you'll really need the frame because it's not going to cool anything. At some point, there's copper involved. You're not going to be able to see it, unfortunately, even though it does look cool. So that's kind of an irrelevant point. But pricing-wise, very fierce competitor. We can recommend the Thermalright one. We would advise a little more caution when installing it, but you can deal with it, and you save a lot of money if it's something you're interested in. For extreme overclockers, we'd still say go Thermal Grizzly, just because of the tighter tolerances and because it's been tested by an exoseer who's very respected and
themselves because there's no desirability in general. Men need to understand, as a woman, for you to be beautiful and to feel beautiful is not just about you telling me that I'm the most beautiful girl in the world.
You know, but to me, like, that's just nonsense. Girls let themselves go because they eat too much and they're lazy. I know a couple girls that got married and gained like 50 pounds. None of them are happy they gained the weight. They all wish they were thinner, but they're too lazy to fix it. It's like,
I don't know.
And now they have the ring. It's like less incentive. You guys know when you get break up with someone, you are in the gym. You're trying to look like you're, me too. Me too. I'm not saying I'm special. Me too. Or in the gym, we're trying to like get our bodies right, all this stuff. And then we get a man and we don't keep it.
I mean, the way I was raised, you cater to your man. So this is your king.
And I'm not
so
saying
you need to look good for him. So I don't know about letting yourself go. No, I've got him now. I need to keep him.
I agree with you, but I'm not saying you in particular. I'm saying this is what the men are saying. These are the issues they're saying.
Yeah, obviously, I think it's wrong. Like, when you get into a relationship, I don't think, like, letting yourself go, I think it's a problem as a woman. Like, why should you do that? Because it's going to leave you. So I do agree with that.
Do you think a man can leave a woman if she lets herself go? He's asked her multiple times to lose the weight and she won't do it.
I wouldn't say...
Let's say there's no kids involved, because kids kind of change things. Well, let's say there's no kids.
Well... To be honest, yes, because no, but it's not unfair. You'll be telling your guy, how many times do you say, listen, I told him a million times to not do this. I told him a million times to get up off his ass. I told him a million times to do this. He didn't do it. I left him. If you as a man, you're speaking to your girl and you're trying to make sure that she improves and she is better and she is not doing that, the problem is not that she's not losing the weight. The problem is the mentality, which is the fact that you are not willing to be better and get better, so that we can both be happy and have the spark for life.
But see, this is what I mean when I say it's like there's little things that are open misandry against
Somebody
men,
needs to. Can somebody give me the
don't
Zoomer thing? I need to be able to hit that. Like every time. It's a little unacceptable that I don't have this yet. Oh, the Vine boom. Yeah. Hold on, let me try this. Why am I wearing gloves? Oh, this is part one.
CryptoZoo.co. I am so excited about this project. It's so fun. It's a really fun game that makes you money.
A fun game that earns you money. How much did you guys make from CryptoZoo?
I lost around $50,000 in CryptoZoo.
I lost $40,000. I lost around 15,000 US dollars.
These are just the worst players.
$120,000.
$500,000 Australian, which is $500,000 in CryptoZoo.
Shut up! No, you haven't.
Yeah, 500K.
Oh.
Kai.
Today we're investigating Logan Paul's CryptoZoo, a blockchain game that made millions but never worked. Some of you guys think you know the story, but it goes so much deeper. I've uncovered sociopaths, billionaires, fake orphans. Did I mention fake orphans? And of course, at the center of it, we have Logan Paul himself, who has abandoned this thing, leaving thousands of fake orphans in his wake. Wait a second. Thousands of victims in his wake. Now, you'll be hearing from some of those people because their stories...
I almost like don't feel bad for some of these people. Does that mean to say? Like, I don't think I feel bad for like, I don't think I feel bad for like Ice Poseidon's fans. Like, come on, you're gonna follow him into an NFT project? Like, really? Like, at some point, you gotta be like, bravs.
Are heartbreaking. This is the first in a 3-part series that's been a year in the making. And if you like high-effort investigations like this one, please consider supporting this channel on Patreon. I don't take sponsors. We are viewer-supported. So if you want to and are able to, thank you. Either way, enjoy the video.
For the last 6 months, I've been working on my own NFT project. We have a massive team behind it and are probably out of pocket like $1 million. Just because we believe it's gonna work. September 1st, CryptoZoo.co.
We don't scam. I've never scammed anyone before. Logan cares extremely deeply about his audience, loves his brand, doesn't have to scam to make money.
Welcome to part one, the million-dollar mystery that began this whole story. Like many people, I first heard about CryptoZoo from a podcast Logan runs called Impulsive, which was the experience of a lot of people that I spoke to.
So I first heard about it on the Logan Paul podcast.
Impulsive, I think. It was off one of the Impulsive episodes.
The thing that I'm most excited for, and this is the first time I've ever said anything about this, for the last 6 months, I've been working on my own NFT project. I think there needs to be a fresh take, and this project that I have is that fresh take.
Now look, at first, I was just as surprised at this pitch as anyone else because I just got finished roasting Logan for a different coin called Dink Doink, which his fans lost money on.
I'm a Dink Doink fan. Dumbest I've ever seen, and that's why I'm all in.
It's comedic, it's fun, it's comedy.
Now look, I know Logan and his friends tried to make it look like Dink Doink was all about the memes, but it turns out they secretly were tied to the project, and Logan created the Dink Doink character himself and subsequently abandoned that project. So if you invested in it, you got blasted, and Logan rightfully took a lot of heat for Dink Doink, which is why I was surprised when he seemingly immediately jumped into another crypto project. But Logan insisted CryptoZoo, it was different. It wasn't his friend's project this time, it was his. And it wasn't even a project at all. It was a game that could earn you money.
I'm excited to launch my game.
You keep using and you just did it again, you keep using a word there. Game. You're not using like a project. It's a game.
It's a game. It's a really fun game that makes you money.
Now you might be wondering, how's it possible to earn money from a game?
True.
Well, let me try to
That sounds
break
like a
it down.
dream.
This is how it was supposed to work. You started by buying this crypto token called Zoo, which is their in-game currency, and you use Zoo coins to then buy egg NFTs, which you can then hatch to become animals. You then can breed those two animals to become hybrid animals. For example, if you breed a gorilla and a kitten, you get a gore kitty. And the more rare the NFT, the higher the daily yield of Zoo tokens that animal earns you every day. Theoretically, it works almost like passive income. You can then burn your animal NFTs to release the Zoo they earned back to you, and from there you can invest it into eggs or just cash out. Now, some of you of the Egyptian persuasion might notice some triangular qualities to this game description. But let's not be too quick to judge, because remember, there are a lot of NFT games built on this model. It's called play to earn. Now, Logan admits that there are other games like his, but what's gonna really make his stand out is that other games have randomly generated assets. His game has handmade art.
It's quick to make a digital asset with, unique, randomly generated characteristics. We handmade art for the past 6 months, bro. Approval, very specific notes, 10 different artists making art for our project.
Now, I'll admit, this all sounds very enticing. Handmade art, a fun game that can earn you money, and one of the biggest influencers in the world backing it. You might think, how can I lose? Which is why when people were told all you had to do to play was buy an egg, people spent millions. Just on the first launch between ETH and Zoo, people bought $2.5 million worth of eggs in the first day. And did I mention the game hadn't even been launched yet? All people were buying was the marketing and the promises. And it wasn't just the NFTs they bought either. The Zoo token also skyrocketed in value, reaching a $2 billion.
The LSF mods are out to get Destiny? Wait, really? What happened?
$1 market cap pre-game launch, right? The trading volume was in the tens of millions of dollars per day, which kind of is like Fortnite not coming out, but people trading tens of millions of dollars in V-Bucks every day. That's what this was like. And I know it sounds stupid to buy an influencer project, but you have to understand, people saw Logan as different.
It was Logan Paul at the end of the day. An internet personality that I actually trusted, that I actually kind of believed in.
Obviously, when someone so influential releases something, everyone wants to be a part of it.
I still believe in this false fallacy that everyone else started believing, that Logan Paul's a changed man.
I thought it was a safe place having a guy like that identified, like Logan Paul being the head of the project.
They had seen this story he had been telling everyone, that he was this reformed influencer, right? That he was no longer a reckless clout goblin just in it for the money.
True.
They thought this time it's different. Logan Paul couldn't possibly scam us.
Wait, do you think I have gloves, but they're like fucking from skiing. I don't think I can wear these. Maybe we can. Hold on. Base glove bros. If I had to guess, it feels like it's like in the. It might be in the 50s in here. It's low 60s at like the warmest. It's fucking cold. Why am I wearing gloves? I'm wearing gloves because my hands are cold, guys.
Right? But as the game got closer to release, the CryptoZoo team started releasing the first ever photos of these animals. And come to find out, this handmade art story wasn't really true. It was actually Adobe stock photos mashed together. This was the sort of first red flag of this project. And I made a video about it at the time, but it was kind of surface level, and something didn't add up beneath the surface. Something where I just couldn't shut this case down in my head. It was actually part of the announcement video that something they said. See if you can spot it.
Are you gonna pay your first month's rent? No heat, no internet. First of all, this apartment has internet. It's just coax. It's not AT&T. And as far as heat, I doubt there are any apartments in Miami that have heaters in them. That would just be very surprising to me.
Have a massive team behind it and are probably out of pocket like $1 million just because we believe it's gonna work.
On development.
Yeah.
That's the line that started this whole mystery. We spent $1 million on development. I couldn't get this out of my head. You know, is he lying? There's no way he expects people to believe he spent it on art. So wait, maybe he spent it on blockchain stuff, right? That's what I thought. But then I audited the smart contract, and it's not handmade at all. It's not even original. It's what's called a fork, a copy of, you know, some other code that exists out there. One of them is called Floki Shib X, which launched before it. So where did this $1 million go?
Okay, hold on, real quick. You gotta be really, really, really careful if you're gonna criticize somebody's project and say like, oh, there wasn't much development here, it was a fork. Like, technically, you can make a fork and create massive projects of a fork. It's like very few things, or actually probably nothing today is like uniquely coded from nothing. Like everybody's building off of like other engines or other projects or whatever for most things. So you have to be really careful to say like, oh, like that's not original work, like that's a fork. You have to be really careful with that.
I didn't understand. And Logan just kept repeating this claim.
We put hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. Personally, the whole team, $1 million plus.
Now at the time I'm looking into this, there's a teaser going around for Hatch Day, which is the day you can hatch your egg NFTs. And it kind of symbolized the true launch of crypto. So I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is where they spent all the money on their game. Even their community manager, Ben Roth, promised people, after Hatch Day, things will take a turn for the 180. So I put Ben Roth on the board too. I needed to know all the characters in CryptoZoo. And I waited. And finally, on November 3rd, 2021, Ben Roth turned out to be right. Things did take a turn on Hatch Day. Only for the work.
Hold on, to be clear, these forks might actually be just like Control-C, Control-V shitcoins, right? It might be like 99% of the code is the same and they like change a couple of like fucking hard-coded like fucking appearance things or whatever, and like that's it. That could be true.
Let's meet one of the victims, Helicopter Bob, to explain more.
My name is Rob. Helicopter Bob lost just under $7,000 with CryptoZoo.
The first thing I asked Bob was about his animals. If he was making money with CryptoZoo, how much
Destiny, in Florida, almost every apartment building / unit has central air or an AC unit. Okay, AC unit I don't think can heat. Well, I guess theoretically, if I had a window AC unit and I took it out and I turned it around and I put it in, specific ones can? Oh, maybe modern ones can. Back in the day, the really dog shit like window AC units, those things couldn't. I never saw those heat before. You're telling me like these things, these window units can do they can do heat and like this can do heat as well? You have a window unit? No, I don't, but the guy in YouTube chat said window units can do AC. Or, I'm sorry, can do heat. I don't know if I don't... Sorry, I just had a random cough.
stayed and if the passive yield worked.
Oh, it never did from the beginning. It wasn't even written into the contract where it showed that you were actually yielding zoo, but there was nothing that was actually, backing that up. There was no way to claim your yield. There never was.
Wait. Play that again. Did you hear that?
There was no way to claim your yield. There never was.
Hold on. The core mechanic of CryptoZoo, that you can make money with these stupid animals, didn't even work on launch day. And still, to this day, a year later, still does not work, is what the investors are saying.
Does it have heat? Well, it's making noise, and I found the heat button. I have like I didn't know if I had heat or not. Okay, so here's the issue. A lot of the stuff inside of my apartment is like controlled by an app on my phone, and my air conditioner thing has like 2 buttons. There's an up button and a down button, and those are like the only 2 buttons. It's one button on the unit, and in order to control everything, I have to use an app on my phone called Smart Rent. But the problem is that I can't control anything in my apartment because my apartment doesn't have internet yet. So it says like your home is offline, so you can't do anything. So I'm like, fuck. I think in order to change the thing on the wall to heat, because it just has a little ice thing like air conditioner, I think in order to change that, I have to change my app. But I went over and I started fucking with it, and I just realized, so it's like one big button where you can push the top, and then you can push the bottom, so it's like up temperature, down temperature. But I just realized you can push the middle and hold it, and it'll bring up a thing to change it to heat. So I just, there we are. Anyway.
This is just crazy. People spent millions of dollars on these eggs. But it even gets worse because I kept talking to people and I discovered something. Because remember I told you could buy eggs with those zoo coins? Well, apparently they also made it so you could buy them with Ethereum. And on the day of selling, about half of these purchases took place with Ethereum. Only it turns out for the people who spent ETH, not only did the yield part of it not work, did the NFTs not pay you, you also couldn't even hatch them.
So I acquired a bunch of eggs, and I actually want to play the game. I didn't acquire the eggs with the intent of keeping them. I actually wanted to hatch them and see what I got out of them and play in this ecosystem that's been advertised or whatever, right? And then I can't do anything. It's not showing up on the website when I connect my wallet, etc., etc. So I'm a little baffled. I'm like, I must be doing something wrong. So I open up a support ticket. CryptoZoo and Ben Roth is actually the person answering my support ticket. Oh yeah, no, it's down for the moment, but we're working on it. Let me tell you, it's never been up.
Wait, you can't even hatch?
No, I'm telling you, it's just a picture. There's nothing I can do with it.
You're kidding! You can't hatch?
There's nothing I can do with it. You could ask any of those community guys. It's basically worth nothing whatsoever.
Wow. So on launch day, basically nothing worked, and a year later, that's still true. Now, after this was discovered, the price of Zoo fell 63% in just 24 hours. And at this point, Logan Paul basically goes silent on CryptoZoo. No more podcast mentions, no more saying he handmade art. CryptoZoo already got millions in investments, but Logan only speaks in the Discord twice over the next year to say, quote, sober, currently shaking my head, and yo. That was his contribution to this project. Meanwhile, his community manager, Ben Roth, was actively claiming that Logan was going to be marketing CryptoZoo any day now. He told people things like, Logan is an uncontrollable marketing guru. It's over when we launch. And when we have a product to market, it'll get marketed. And marketing will crush. I promise you. And this disconnect between Logan abandoning the project and his team on CryptoZoo saying that it was going to be any day now, left investors feeling like they were being led on.
All he had to do was go on and tell us, look, there's something going on with this project, I'm abandoning it, or whatever, before people got more and more trapped. And promising, yeah, this is going to be great, but when it came to actually doing
This guy's
anything,
like on some FBI fucking crime
you
shit.
just hid away from it.
Have some decency to come out, talk to the people that invested initially, that invested along the way on all of the fake, the false promises, and all of the false hype, and be honest with people.
Because surely Logan Paul, who's got this $1 billion hydration company and a WWE star, he's got enough money. He doesn't need to rug as well.
And it's because of these false promises about marketing that these poor investors believed in CryptoZoo so long. They sat. and watched every Logan Paul episode trying to guess and decipher when this so-called marketing push would happen. And Logan and his team really fed into this with a lot of cryptic messages. Only a month after CryptoZoo's launch, actually, the Hatch Day, they started teasing this.
Hatch Day?
Not too much of this is out, but he's been working on a massive project.
And one of them will be the biggest thing I ever do. It'll be like my life and soul is put into this project, which is where most of my time these days goes.
Wow, surely this secret project that Logan put his soul into is CryptoZoo, right? You know, the project he launched a month ago? Well, his fans certainly thought so.
I'm like, holy cow, it makes so much sense. He's talking about CryptoZoo. Ben and the dudes are like putting smiley faces and egging the rest of the community. Like, this is it, guys. You know, this is what we've been working towards. I mean, this is it. This is.
Oh, no.
It's finally happening. Logan's gonna market the project, and they kept saying that Logan's gonna market the project, and it's gonna change everything.
So now imagine their surprise when another clip surfaces of Logan finally admitting this secret project isn't CryptoZoo at all. It's something else entirely.
I'll tell you about this project when we get closer to launch. This project of mine is going to be...
Is that the thing with the egg? Like the zoo?
No.
Okay,
This one's
going to be, this will be crazy.
Oh man, can you imagine if you're one of these investors and Logan Paul's going pitching this new secret project and you're thinking it's CryptoZoo and someone's like, oh, is it that thing with the eggs? And he's like, no, definitely not. That was the last project. This is the real project that I'm working on. Thankfully, people didn't just let this slide because as he went around making the rounds on his new project called 99 Originals, people were like, hey, didn't you just abandon your last one? Unsurprisingly, it's not his fault. It's the bad actors who ruined the project.
As I see people giving multiple explanations for why these haven't worked, and you know there's accusations out there. How does it make you feel when people are doing these takedown videos about your NFT projects previously?
It's sad because of what I just said. There's so much going on behind the scenes. Like, Doug, I'm not the bad guy here.
Yeah.
There's some actual out there. Yeah. And it's not me. Like, I'm here to build.
This is a space where a lot of people do see dollar signs. Like any burgeoning industry, if there's money to be made, there's going to be both good and bad people.
There's a lot of shady characters in the crypto space. I'm learning all of it. We had an issue with CryptoZoo where our lead developer took the code that he made, fled to Switzerland, and like held it hostage for $1 million. Like behind the scenes drama that like took.
What, did he like print the code out and carry it with him on a hard drive? What do you mean? He took the where's the code? It's in Switzerland. Fuck. No.
Took a stick and stuck it in the spokes of my wheels.
Oh, well, that wasn't expected. There's a shady developer who held up Logan's code hostage in Switzerland. That's why this hasn't worked the whole time. He held it hostage for $1 million. Well, let's add that to the board. I mean, isn't the mystery solved? Now, obviously, the first thing I wanted to do was hunt down this developer, who we'll be calling Z here, and find out the truth of what happened. Why did he steal Logan's code for $1 million? However,
why did he take it to Switzerland?
I finally got a hold of him, and when I did, he admitted he took the code hostage, but he says the reason for it was nothing like what Logan had said.
He never gave me anything at all, ever. I never paid. And it got to a point when I was working on it where I just realized they were just going to try to steal all of my work on me. So I took all of the source code private. And I kind of spent like a month just trying to negotiate and get something figured out where I would finally get paid. Because I'm on my end, I have a team of 30 engineers. I'm earning $50,000 a week on building this thing. And the only thing they brought to the table were a bunch of Photoshop.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. What?
I finally got a hold of him, and when I did, he admitted he took the code hostage, but he says the reason for it was nothing like what Logan had said.
He never paid me anything at all, ever. I never paid. And it got to a point when I was working on it where I just realized they were just going to try to steal all of my work on me. So I took all the source code private. And I kind of spent like a month just trying to negotiate and get something figured out where I would finally get paid. Because I'm on my end, I have a team of 30 engineers. I'm earning $50,000 a week.
Okay, I'm gonna say something that sounds a little bit mean, but I don't mean it to sound mean. Okay, actually, it's not mean. I'm gonna give a big compliment. Okay. The CoffeeZilla guy seems like he has a channel where he kind of started doing these like little investigations on the side, and it feels like a year ago, he was like not really that big of a guy, but he's like blown the fuck up. He's blown up over the past like year, which is really cool. And he's done like a lot of big investigations. He's cracked like a lot of things. That's really cool. And it seems like there hasn't been any weird drama or anything surrounding him. That seems like pretty cool. I'm happy for him. For you. Wait, what is this emo? That's really cool. But it feels like, fuck, I'm trying to think of a way to say this, because I'm not trying to insult him. I'm trying to use the word amateurish, but it feels like he doesn't have like a professional background in any of this stuff. So every now and then, something will get said to him by another person, or something will happen, and it's like, fuck. Like if he had like a little bit more business experience or a little bit more knowledge in this area, like I think he would have something more to say here. But it's cool that he's made it this far as like, I'm assuming like relatively like an amateur for all of this. That's really cool. But there are just a couple things. I remember I felt this way during the SBX stuff, where there were a couple of financial things where it's like, and he did a really good job by the end of it in terms of like asking the right questions. But if he would have known a little bit more about like the financial stuff beforehand, he could have like nailed the SBF dude like really hard on some things. But it was just like lack of knowledge. For here, and I just wasted this whole speech because maybe he's about to say something, okay? The idea that you have a developer with 30 employees, holy fuck, working on a project, and you haven't penned out any contract? You're not getting any money? You've got 30 engineers working on a project? That's a huge team of people. You've got 30 engineers working on a project, and you don't know what the fuck? That is a wild claim to me. That sounds like a wild claim. But he might say that actually in like 2 minutes, and I shouldn't have paused this, so my bad.
So I took all the source code provided, and I kind of like spent like a month just trying to negotiate and get something figured out where I would finally get paid. Because like I'm on my end, I have even 30 engineers. I'm earning $50,000 a week.
No, hold on. Someone said 30 GitHub randos who commit 5 spelling. No, because he's saying he's spending 50 grand a week on devs here. That's not GitHub shitters.
Building this thing, and the only thing they brought to the table were a bunch of Photoshop JPEGs.
So Z claims he wasn't blackmailing anyone. He had to hire a team to develop this whole thing, and he just wanted to be paid for the work they did. According to him, they negotiated a $1 million payday for this whole project. And from the second I heard that, I thought, oh, that's interesting, because Logan claims he spent $1 million on this whole thing. And this developer's saying he's owed $1 million on this project. Now, I didn't want to just take one person's word for it, so I later confirmed with another developer who worked for something called the Blockchain Center that he also hadn't been paid.
We've been paid nothing. I would have loved to have Zoo, but I don't have any.
So that's multiple sources working on the CryptoZoo team project who were not paid. Now, obviously, these are big accusations, which is why I wanted to confront Logan Paul on them. But unfortunately, we're not exactly on speaking terms. So I wondered, how could I speak to Logan without speaking to Logan? And that's when
the
I found out
GPT-3
there was
AI
someone
bot
who might know just as much about this whole story.
And I will explain everything one day with my manager, who's like...
That would have been cool, though.
In charge now.
Logan Paul's manager, a guy named Jeff Levin. He might be just what we need to settle this whole thing. So I gave him a call.
Hello?
Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, sorry to bother you. This is Steven with CoffeeZilla. I'm calling because I've heard reports that CryptoZoo hasn't paid their development team, and I'm just reaching out for comment before I do this story. I got your number from one of the development team, and they just wanted to, I just want to follow up on that. I have no comment for it.
Ooh.
Okay, are you guys denying it, or are you saying it's not true?
No comment.
No comment. I don't think that the information is true.
Oh,
okay, because
that's
they're
a
saying
comment.
$1 million hasn't been paid in development for crypto.
Wait, does he live in a one-party state, or how is he able to get these recordings and like people don't like fucking sue him or whatever? Or does he ask them for permission afterwards and they let him?
Zoo, and Logan Paul said publicly that it has been paid. So, I mean, it's a pretty serious accusation, and obviously, I don't want to just run a story. If you guys have a whole side to your story here. Your job as a
as someone that is reporting news is to actually verify correct news.
That's why he's calling
Right,
you.
that's why I'm calling you.
Yeah. Dumb fuck.
I know, and that's legal grounds for that stuff. So I'm just telling you, legally, you have to report correct news with verifiable information.
Right, that's why I'm calling you. They've given me a lot of things. A lot of evidence.
Okay, well, okay. You can have the evidence you want, but I'm just letting you know, if you report anything on us, I appreciate your business. I appreciate you as a person. And I'm just telling you, from a legal standpoint, as we've been advised always, is if anybody reports fake news,
we're suing them.
That's where we won't
tolerate it.
Yeah, this call
Jesus.
was a mess. Jeff, Logan's manager, seems to be implying that I'm not allowed to repeat allegations his own development team made, even though Logan can go on podcasts and publicly accuse those developers of stealing his code. Not only that, he's the one who refuses to provide any evidence, but seems to sort of be implying that maybe we'll sue you if you tell this to anyone, which he then denies doing when I ask him if that's what he's doing.
Told you I have no comment to it. Telling you once again, from a legal standpoint, you have to report truth. If you do not verify truths, then you're just allegations, and those then will be handled the way that we want to handle them.
Wait, so you're saying
Simple as that.
you refuse to give me proof that the allegations aren't true, but if I report on the
I have no
allegations, you guys might sue.
No, I did not say that. I did not say that.
All right,
Once again,
I'm trying to read between
no
the
comments.
lines.
Don't read between the lines.
Okay,
Listen to
okay.
the exact words that I'm saying.
Okay,
Listen to the exact words I'm saying.
I'm listening.
I have no comment on the situation.
Okay.
Your job legally is to report facts. If you don't report facts on the information you're given, it is illegal.
Yes, that was a real conversation with a real person. Now, I'm no lawyer, but I don't think it's a crime to say that multiple developers say they haven't been paid, and Logan's team refuses to provide any evidence or statements or wire transfers that they have. Which, by the way, seems incredibly ironic, given just how much Logan whines about not being paid by Floyd Mayweather.
Where's my money, bitch? Floyd never paid me for our fight. Who am I, the IRS?
Nope, but you might be the CryptoZoo dev team. Now, in all seriousness, I do want to acknowledge something which actually kind of looks bad a bit on the developers, because it turns out very few written contracts were actually done. So much of this were verbal deals, like, oh, we'll take care of you, we'll give you $350K, we'll give you $1 million, we'll give you whatever. But then when it was time to actually sign the deals, there's just always delays.
What kind of promises were made to you? Verbal promises, basically. So
why would you do so much dev work on verbal promises? How stupid. How, no offense, I'm sorry. Oh no, they're not rape victims, so no one will accuse me of victim blaming, thank you. You can do a little bit of work on verbal promises, but when you've got 30 people working on a project, 30 people? I know that you guys don't have in your minds, it feels like everybody thinks what's a large project, 10,000 employees. 30 devs working on a project. That's a big project. That's a lot of people. That's probably more, let's see, can I say this? I wonder if that's more people than would work on the development of a game. 30 different devs. If you get rid of artists and shit, I bet 30 devs is more than a AAA fucking game. I bet it is. I bet it is. If you get rid of artists and shit like that and network engineers and fucking dumb shit like that, I bet it could be. I bet it could be.
So verbal promises, and then we follow up with a physical paper agreement. But that's when communication broke down.
This is where I think the dev guys
In
screwed up and
Alaska,
led to this.
a unique relationship between people and nature has existed for over 10,000 years. Salmon have sustained indigenous communities across the state all that time. But it's a story that's facing a change to its narrative, owing to the impacts of climate change. My name is Anna Hoover. I am a Norwegian and Unangach filmmaker based in Alaska. To me, climate change is a tragedy unraveling these ancient ecosystems in slow motion. It makes me feel uncertain about the future of my way of life. In my film, Salmon Reflection, I wanted to document the potential for disaster in Bristol Bay, one of the last surviving salmon ecosystems on our planet. But what will this story look like in 10, 50, 100 years? That's for us all to decide. This is Salmon Reflection.
We have to care for the next generations, to not think in a short term, and salmon are a really good teacher for that. They dedicate their lives to the next generation.
We rely on salmon for food from many generations back. The most important thing that we offer to the salmon is respect and honoring their existence, their spirit.
It's very easy to start thinking that other beings are something less than you. Dominant ethic has to change from being one that's human-centered to being one that's earth-centered.
The salmon, they're a life source for all different living things.
Always knew that from time immemorial that rivers need to be clean. All these things we rely on, they all need good, clean environment. We want respect, we want love, and the salmon needs all of that to be also healthy, just like us humans.
Salmon are like a ribbon that ties it together, and they hold the connection between the greater spaces that you can't see, but when you eat them, you know it's more than where you are.
Gives us good health, good nourishment. It nurtures our body and soul and spirit. Salmon is our life support.
Understanding the kind of rebirth that occurs naturally on our earth is a way of living. And we just have to stop thinking we own anything on earth.
The water, lands, and the sky. That's our wealth. And I can never say it enough, that's our wealth.
That's kind of what humanity needs to do now. We need to be like salmon. We need to struggle upstream for the next generation.
The laws of nature, we all live under it. There isn't one person that does not live under it.
Without damage and without threatening it, it could last forever and ever and ever.
They know their home, where they can spawn. They know where to go. They know their way, they know their path. From what knowledge they've had from way back in time.
Five love languages are quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, and gifts. Gifts is really just there to weed out the assholes. If you ask somebody, what's your love language, and they say gifts, you're like, got it. Here's what I've learned about the love languages. Your love language is just whatever your partner isn't fucking doing right now. Like, what's my love language? standing up to your mother. That's my love language. Having my back. That's my love language. 5 love languages are quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, and gifts. Gifts is really just there to weed out the assholes.
Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss whether or not Red Wall Tory MPs actually understand why they won their seats and what they needed to do, if it were even possible, to retain them. A recent article which presents the views of one of them, the notable ape, Jonathan Gullis, suggests that they may actually be completely clueless. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So this is one of those videos I occasionally do, where I'm bemoaning the lack of any credibility amongst Tory MPs.
Hallo?
Can apply to MPs of any party, really, but the Tories are the ones in control. I mean, I don't mind Tory MPs being clueless if they use their magnificent ignorance to lose elections, but it offends me when the party machine and the client media can engineer success for these monkeys. You know, I keep saying, I understand calculating evil. That makes sense to me. I cannot get over stupid evil. Stupid evil shouldn't win. I was reading an editorial piece in the Financial...
Wie bitte?
Ja.
Was?
Wie anguckst.
Hörst du das? Och, immer noch. Ich muss mein Shit einstellen. Die Engländer haben die ganze Zeit... Bei denen ist die ganze Zeit Drama. Ist ganz lustig. Hallo?
Ich will doch jetzt eh ins Bett.
Das ist ja dein Problem.
Soweit richtig, aber...
Alter, hat der eine dicke Wumme immer. Der Chief, was macht der da für Moves?
So. Ja, mal raus, Jungs.
Ja, 2 Flinten.
User disconnected from your channel.
Alles klar, hau rein, tschö. Welcher dieser Champion ist ein guter Konter gegen Magier? Das ist ein...
Hä?
Handel? Hundle?
Times, which describe the pessimism surrounding Red Wall Tory MPs who feel that their time is coming to an end, which I'll get into, but also of Jonathan Gullis being more optimistic. Now, in itself, that doesn't necessarily represent a disconnect from reality on either part. You know, there are some Red Wall seats that the Tories had a realistic shot of retaining, and actually with 1 or 2, it's still far from certain that Labour will win them all back. What's important to be mindful is why each of those 48 or so so-called Red Wall seats were won by the Tories. As far as I'm concerned, there are 5 factors to be mindful of, but 4 of which helps the Tories. I'm not going to discuss the other one. The other one's the Brexit Party. You know, and some of these factors that helps them were one-offs, and seats reliant on those factors were very unlikely to be retained. You know, the win was a one-off, just like the factors. But some of the factors were not one-offs, which gave the Tories a chance. So the first factor was natural demographic changes. Like many of the Red Wall seats are in former industrial powerhouses in North of England and North Midlands mostly. You know, these were communities where many of the active voters are old enough to remember when times were a lot better, when there was a lot more money flowing into the community. But their memory's a little bit shaky. They forget that it was the Tories who took it all away. But the consequence was that in a town with fewer opportunities, young people who are these days much more likely to go to university, they move elsewhere for jobs after graduation. You know, this leaves behind a larger proportion of the population being non-graduate workers or elderly homeowners. In other words, the sorts of people who tend to vote Conservative. And this had nothing to do with recent political turmoil. This was down to a demographic change that was slowly moving that way over a great many years. All of the red wall seats benefited from this shift to an extent and will continue to help them in the next election and beyond. But how likely it was to believe a red wall seat could be retained depended largely on just how large a factor this was in the 2019 result. The second factor was the Jeremy Corbyn aspect.
Jörg
Put
fragt, wo ich
simply,
alleine war.
Boris Johnson wasn't popular in the country. Yes, you can find his fans, but his approval rating as a potential Prime Minister, or he was a Prime Minister at the time, was negative. People didn't consider him to be honest.
Ich habe 15 Goldfinishes
But
gekriegt.
such was the
Ja,
negative
richtig reich.
of Corbyn amongst the public that Johnson was seen at worst as the lesser of two evils. As the
Ich hab's auf
2019
den
general
zweiten
election
Bildschirm
came
gerade
out,
geworfen.
Tories could have retained some hope that this factor would still benefit them. It was possible. You know, even given that Corbyn stepped down, his replacement could have been a puppet from his camp. You know, and then they could have said that this person was just acting as like the face of Jeremy Corbyn. In fact, so important a factor was this to the Tories in the 2019 election. Tory strategists haven't given up on it. You know, how often have we heard both Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak try to link Starmer to Corbyn as a way of desperately continuing to play this card? But it simply can't work. It was always an act of desperation when they played it. A last resort when their back was against the wall in PMQs and they couldn't think of anything else. This factor is now a dead duck for the next election. Any votes won due to this factor are basically gone. The third factor was, of course, Brexit. Big one. This is another factor that is pretty much a dead end, dead and buried for the Tories, desperately trying to cling to it. I know from activists that Labour are satisfied that red wall voters think that Brexit is done. It's no longer considered an electoral issue. The Tories still try to claim that, oh yeah, you've got to vote Tory, otherwise Labour will reverse Brexit. Now, for what it's worth, yeah, they will. Because they have to. Because they have to. But it won't be done as the Tories claim. It's not going to be quick. We know they're not going to get into power and go, right, we're going to negotiate re-entry back. We know none of that's happening. And what's more important, voters, even the few but strategically important Brexit supporting voters, they don't believe that's going to happen either. But the red wall Tories were all defined by Brexit. You know, I don't know how many red wall Tory MPs really believe in Brexit, but it is what they're all about as a political entity. They have to be, they had to be. That campaign, for which they were an inexperienced election candidate, was all about Boris Johnson Brexit. It was plastered all over their campaign literature. That's what they were selling, Boris Johnson and Brexit. Boris Johnson and Brexit. That's what they campaigned with. Both are considered done and dusted by the electorate now. So those MPs, still inexperienced, need to find something else to define them in the next election, because neither is going to help them next time. The fourth factor was what they thought was their trump, levelling. Boris Johnson was going to get Brexit done. He was going to see off Jeremy Corbyn. He was going to thank the people in the Red Wall for lending the Tories their votes, as indeed he did. He said, I recognise that you have just lent us your vote. I am now going to justify that choice with levelling up. And that meant, they said, closing the gap between the affluent parts of the south of England and the left-behind communities basically everywhere else. Only any of those Tory MPs in the Red Wall who believed it don't seem to understand what the Tories are all about. The best they could hope for was that some funding would be announced for some grand projects in their area, maybe a year or so away from the next election, and the hope that voters would be fooled into thinking, oh, the money's coming, oh, we're going to get this grand project, brilliant, budget's been allocated, oh yeah, we'll vote for you again to see it through, don't you worry, son. But this was a nonsense. It's not just that the Tories aren't interested in redistributing wealth or opportunities, it's that their core support in those affluent areas are dead against it. You know, people vote for various parties for various reasons, of course, but the main thing that defines the Conservative Party compared to all the other main British parties is that the Tories are unashamedly selfish. You know, the greed is good mantra is something they think is fine. They make the claim that a vote for them is a vote to do what's best for you at the expense of others. Long-standing Tory voters in the Shires didn't want to pay higher taxes in order to boost investment somewhere else. And they sort of understood the mathematics here. One of two things is going to happen. If you try and level up parts of the North Midlands and the north of England and North Wales, wherever, it means one of two things. Either you're going to have to pump more money in, which means they pay higher taxes, or you're going to have to take investment from where they are and transplant it, which means they have fewer opportunities. They don't want that. They don't want more opportunities in other places. They like being in the areas that acts like a magnet to all the investment money, because it boosts their own employment opportunities, boosts their own incomes, boosts the value of their house. Especially when the Tories clamps down on the building of affordable housing. You know, relying on homeowners for your vote is a bit of a problem for any party who wants to do what's best for the country. Fortunately, the Tories don't, so it's fine. But what it meant was that there was zero chance of levelling up the red wall areas. Zero chance. Wasn't even a case that the Tories would fund investment to the parts of the north that returned a Tory MP, which would have been an illegal allocation of funds, but they don't worry about things like that. There was actually no chance of levelling up policies being done. And sure enough, as soon as they published their definitive plans, their actual plans, not just their vision, projects in the north were massively scaled back or put altogether. Whoever would have guessed it. And any red wall Tory MP who ever thought the policy was going to see the light of day, to me, just exposed themselves as being pig ignorant about politics in this country. Indeed, in this article I was reading, it said that Gullis felt that if Sunak could just provide an inspiring vision of the future, then the fortunes of the Red Wall could turn back to the Tories. Now, he's not asking his government to deliver anything real, just present a vision. And I just thought, man, Sunak's been PM for 2 months. Johnson was PM for 3 years. He never provided that vision. But this is the disconnect of some of these Tory MPs. See, they lionised Boris Johnson as he won them their seat. But they seem oblivious to the fact he didn't do it for them. He didn't do it for the party. He didn't even do it for the people. He did whatever was necessary for himself. And as for this vision, they're for oppositions. It's the picture you paint of the country you could have if only they were in power. Well, the Tories have been in power for over 12 years now. If this vision still isn't ready after 12 and a half years, it could just be argued that maybe they don't really know what it is. I mean, in 2019, I actually thought most of the Red Wall Tory MPs would just see it as a bit of an experience, you know, a few years. I mean, some of the seats were winnable, of course, some of the seats absolutely, and still remain winnable, but most of them were never going to survive this one-off perfect storm of events that just conspired with the Tories in 2019. I thought that maybe some would try, make a name for themselves, and then pop up in a safe seat somewhere else in the country a few years later, but the rest would just enjoy a few years being an MP, then go back to whatever they were doing before. But the way many of them are carrying on, you know, whether it's the pessimistic ones, it's saying, well, why are you pessimistic? Weren't you expecting this? Did you actually think you would win your seat next time? Or if it's the optimistic ones like Gullis, who think that their chances rest on Rishi Sunak doing this or that, you know, to make it all better, you just think, do you know nothing about politics? Do you know nothing about your own political party? Stupid evil annoys me every time. But there we are, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for membership. Until next time, see you later.
But you're not in the washing machine business, are you?
No, but I could tell you about something that I am involved in. So
Well, then why are we talking about washing machines?
Well, because that's one as well, that you didn't want to talk about it.
No, I do. I want you to tell me how changing this regulation is going to make your life or my life better.
Well, the whole economy works better if the regulations are well written and they're practical. Most of the European regulations are very unpractical and over the top.
I mean, forgive me, but that should make it really, really easy for you to answer my questions then. So how is my life going to be improved by reviewing washing machine legislation?
Well, okay, so that maybe not directly your life.
Well, okay, your life then.
Immediately. So if everyone's working very inefficiently, there's been less money for everybody. I'm just saying the rules that the European Union have like.
Yes, and I'm asking you to prove it, I suppose, politely.
Okay, so for example, I'll give you a better example. Something
that was supposed to be your best.
No, it was just an example, and there's hundreds of thousands of examples. I think
so when you say there's hundreds and thousands, and I say give me one, I think the presumption is that you'll reach for a strong one.
Yeah, and I can give you another. Well, you keep telling me that's not the area of the industry I work in.
No, I just said how will it improve our lives, washing machines, and you don't know, which is fine. I don't know either, so I probably wouldn't have phoned you live on the radio to say it, but here we are. So let's move on to something else.
The problem with the European Union is the bureaucracy, correct?
No, I've heard all of this, but that's not what Sajid Javid is asking. He's asking which bureaucracy, bits of this bureaucracy you'd like to get rid of. So we can't put washing machines on the list. I think we both agreed on that, because you haven't got a clue how it would improve anything. So what are we going to put? What are we going to put on the list?
So another thing involved in recent years, bats and bat surveys and all that kind of stuff.
But bats?
Yeah.
So how is that going to improve your life or mine?
Well, basically, for example,
bats as in the flying mammals that sleep upside down.
The price of houses, okay? You're concerned about the price of houses.
So we're not talking about bats anymore.
Yeah, we are, but you have to let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
If you had more houses on the market, since that user to build, then the price of houses would be lower, and there'd be more houses available for everybody. So one of the things that holds up development on building sites is the fact that you have to go through ridiculous procedures for checking for bats and protecting the bats, and you can't do things that would actually prevent the bats coming in. You can't do.
Okay, so I'm going to put that down. So we'll tell Sajid Javid we want less protections for bats.
Not protections, but just relevant protections, because.
So we don't want. Okay, so right. So which bit of the current legislation would you change first? Do you think, with regard to the bats?
Well, for bats, you've got to go through it. I mean, the American legislation is pretty good.
Here are 4 simple ways to fix strip screws like we see on hinges like this, and each of these costs little to no money. Now when you have a strip screw hole like this, it's because there's nothing for the screw to grab onto. If you take a look at the cross section of this, you can see that there's really nothing for that screw to hold onto because the threads have pulled all of that material out. And that's what I'll show you how to take care of. The first solution is just to use stuff you have already around the house. So for example, in this case, I've got some toothpicks. You can use some golf tees, maybe some matchsticks. You can also mix up some wood glue and some sawdust like this, or you can even use things like lollipop sticks that we happen to have kicking around the house. Some honorable mentions go to things like shish kebab skewers, and you can also use the disposable chopsticks that you get at some restaurants. Now depending on which item you're using, there's some different methods that may be easier for some items than others. So with toothpicks, for example, it's really just as simple as putting one in, make sure it bottoms out there. See if you can fit a second or maybe even a third in there. In this case, a second one fits in, but it's very tight. And then for toothpicks, these are nice and easy. Snap it off like that, maybe twist it around if you need to, and you're good to go. Then we can take the screw, and it should twist right back in there. And now it's going to grab because that hole is filled and it has something for those threads to grab securely onto. There we go. With matchsticks, oftentimes you'll just be able to fit one of them in there. So that one's all the way in. Yeah, a second one's not going to fit. And again, you can break it off, or if it's easier, you can use some cutters like this and just cut it off like that. With a golf tee, for example, it's nice to use a hammer to just pound that thing in like that, and then you can use that same hammer to snap it off. So I'm just using a very small drill bit, maybe a 1/16, just to give me a little area to drive the screw in. And I can already tell that is grabbing way tight, so that's doing a great job. Now another quick solution with the golf tees or anything larger like that is just to use a bit of super glue. So I'm going to take a little bit of this and put that down into the hole there. And that way, that's going to absorb in there. I'll take my golf tee, drive it in, snap it, and then within just a few seconds, this will harden and be ready for me to drive the new screw in. Now with any of these fixes, you can use traditional wood glue and that will strengthen things. You can use some super glue and that's also a good idea. Now this last one we're going to try is with some sawdust and wood glue, and for that we'll just get a little bit of sawdust on here. We'll mix in just about that much, just a few drops of wood glue. Then once we've got that, we can put that down into the strip screw hole here. Now we'll let that cure overnight just to make sure it's totally solidified, and then the next day you can drive that screw right back in. Our second method is just to use longer screws or screws with wider threads if the circumstances allow. In the case of the door frame, for example, with the hinge, if this screw just keeps spinning, then I need to first remove it. And a little tip for that is if you rock it to one side, that'll often give it enough to grab onto to help you pull it out. So I'll do that, and then as soon as you get it, then you can use your finger to kind of rock it to that one side until it comes all the way out. Now the door frame that these are screwed into are typically between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch thick, and then you almost always, however, have a 2x4 behind that and sometimes multiple 2x4s. So by using a longer screw like this that's 2 inches instead of the 1-inch screw that typically comes on a hinge, then we can grab onto that 2x4 behind there. I'm just going to use a drill to drive this in. Yeah, there we go. That definitely grabbed in there, and that's not going anywhere. As far as wider screws, I've got this screw right here, for example, that's just bottomed out. There's nothing happening, it's not grabbing. So again, I'm going to try to remove it by pulling it to the side. There we go. Get that out. And now I've got another screw that I'm going to use that's the same length, but the width is much greater. So I'm going to drive this one in. Now that's in there nice and tight because we used a wider screw with wider threads. For our third option, we're going to use a dowel to level the playing field. This is just actually an extra dowel from one of the IKEA furniture kits that I had, and that'll work just great for our circumstances. This one is especially good because it has these ridges along the side, which means when you drive it in, it's less likely to twist or turn on you, which is exactly what we want. Another option that you can use, however, is just a standard number 2 pencil will often do the job. There's rounded ones and there's ridged ones like this, and just like with the dowel, the ridged one gives us a little better grip as far as not twisting inside the hole and makes it a little bit quicker for us to get started working with it. To get us started, we'll measure the thickness of the dowel. So we need a drill bit that matches that. So I've got this one that's actually a little bit smaller, which is ideal. We want it to be a little bit smaller to handle those ridges. On this drill, I've got a little flag that I've put here that matches the depth of the dowel. And that's because I want, in this particular case, to sink this dowel all the way in. None of it will be showing. If you do have some of it that's showing, it might be a good idea to set that a little bit more shallow, like that, and that'll give you the option to cut it off flush right at the surface. Now we can drill this out to that depth that we've marked, right there. We're going to apply some wood glue into the hole, and a Q-tip is a great applicator for something like this. And then just use that Q-tip to get it all around the sides and hammer it in. So again, I went all the way down flush with this, but if you wanted to cut a smooth surface off, then you want to leave it protruding just a little bit, and then you can use a flush cut saw like this one, and we could just cut it flush with the surface. Now with that done, we can pre-drill again. Basically, we're starting all over. So now, as you can see, we have a nice fresh hole, and the screw should grab on perfectly to this. The fourth method I want to show you is how to use some mechanical helpers like T-nuts and threaded inserts to help with those strip screw holes. So to start, we're going to take a look at these threaded inserts here. Now these come in a couple of different varieties and they have different sizing. This is a type A, and it's just got rows of little spikes here. So I can drive that right down and hold it in place, and that'll prevent it from twisting inside the hole. Now type D here just uses a bunch of little teeth as threads, almost like a traditional screw, and gets driven in with an Allen wrench. Now we'll measure the barrel of the threaded insert without the threads like this. And we're going to drill out the hole just like we did before. We'll tap it in to get it started. Tap, tap-a-roo.
Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo.
Then we should be able to use our Allen wrench to start to drive that guy in. It's already going in really smooth. Takes a little elbow grease. There we go, that's in there. Now from there, we can use either of the screws that we want. So let's say we wanted to take this guy here and thread it in. And there we go. We've got another way to fasten things down nice and secure. So next, let's take a look at T-nuts. Now, T-nuts are a little bit different in that you want them to actually be pulling from the back side of something. So let's say, for example, I've got two boards like this that are fastened together, maybe for some furniture or something like that. And once again, one of these screws is stripped, not going anywhere, and not fastening. On the T-nut bags, they typically list what the diameter of the barrel is. So in this case, 5/16. So I just need to grab a 5/16 inch drill bit to drill out my hole. Then on the back, I'm going to take the T-nut, and the barrel will kind of slip right down into the hole there, and then just use a hammer to drive those little teeth right down in. There we go. So those teeth are hanging on really good in there. Then I can just take a washer and my other drill, or my other screw, and fasten it down like this, and it's going to thread right into that T-nut on the other side and give me a nice strong grip. Now, another super annoying thing that happens in this sort of scenario is when you get a stripped screw head. And so if you want to learn about how to prevent that and what to do in that case, you can check out this video right here. I'm Nils with Learn to DIY. Thanks for watching.
Class, teacher's got a bit of a hangover. I can't do it today, so we're gonna watch a movie. Let me just... Class, teacher's got a bit of a hangover.